It's almost like God knows football season's here, at least here in the Brazos Valley. Last night, we got a little
rain.
Yeah. A little bit. It didn't rain that much by my house, but we got a little bit of rain.
I got enough to notice last night.
Yeah, and I heard it. At least there was that. How long had it been?
Oh, gosh. I don't know, 2 months?
Something like that. And it's like, all right, boom. Now we can start the fall, technically, because we're going to have a cold front this week, right? It's going to go from 109 to 104. So there's progress there.
Yeah. You know what? How hot has it been when you start looking for 99 as relief? Oh, if we could just get under triple digits.
It'll be great.
It's like golf.
Well, it is TexAgs Radio. It's good. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hours presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looked so good with Maroon U. Official game week. We had week 0 that I kind of paid attention to. Wasn't super interested in it, but I was happy that football was on, and we'll get into some of the pageantry behind the games, but at least we had some football, and today we actually get a press conference. Look who it is. Good old Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
We'll get into USC's defense and more here in a little bit, but today we get a Jimbo Fisher press conference, and I assume, this is how I explained it yesterday on the Luchador. I think I said this. If not, it was in passing. I think Jimbo will mention Connor as a starting quarterback, as in, yeah, he's a starting quarterback. Like, not as an announcement. Like, yeah. Like, that's how I'm kind of picturing. Just business as usual. He's our guy. Yeah, move on. Not making it like, I'd like to announce today that so-and-so is our starting quarterback.
I don't know what to expect.
Okay.
I expect Connor to be named the starting quarterback, but I could see Jimbo coming in and announcing it right away, and it wouldn't surprise me the least if he said, well, it's going to be a game-time decision.
We'll figure it out then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you got to keep New Mexico, off balance.
You got to keep them off balance. Some of this there is a little pageantry when it comes to Miami. I'm just saying, like I doubt,
Yeah, you know who the starting quarterback is by week 2, right?
What did I see? Tyler Van Dyke having
thumb issue.
Thumb issues? Doing too much gig 'em?
Maybe. He hit his thumb on a helmet, right?
Yeah.
So he might not play against Ohio.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. That's part of the pageantry, right?
And I'm,
or the gamesmanship, not the pageantry. The gamesmanship.
The gamesmanship, yeah.
All right, if you want to be a part of the conversation this morning, you can do it a couple different ways. You can text us. You can call us. I don't care. Do something that feels right. 979-693-1150. That's the text line. That is also the hotline. So we'll also talk to a couple players today. Now it's like last week was the first week of school, but now we're having the press conference where the whole shebang is happening. We got other sports showing up. It feels like we keep knocking on the door about football season, but now
now we're in
it is football season.
Yeah.
There's no
now we're in the foyer. We were talking about that a little bit earlier though, about the gamesmanship. And I just wonder, I remember when Dennis Francione was moving Jeff Handgartner from center to tackle, I think it was.
Yep.
Against Utah. And he didn't want to, hey, we're not telling anybody. And you're like, how long do you think it takes the opposing coach to figure out, oh, okay, we got to adjust to this?
But don't you think there's some of it why do you need to know? Why do I got to tell you?
I know.
Why do we need to tell media guy this? I know why we want to know, so we can break it down and talk about it and inform our audience.
Because you have millions of fans that want to know.
Yeah.
But, if you really think that's going to give you a better chance to win, do whatever it takes to win. If that means not letting anyone know who the quarterback or the long snapper is, then if you feel like that gives you a better chance to win, then so be it.
Everybody feels not everybody. Most people, I've noticed this. There's a guy who came at me this weekend. Not really came at me. Just pointed out the fact that I was wrong about the Astros getting a sweep. Because, when we do bank on it, we just got to choose something. Astros are going to sweep. And they were a couple outs away from the sweep, but whatever. But I looked, and he was really down. I think really down on it. I think if you're thinking 7-5, I think that's down on A&M, right? I also understand why people would say that, because how do you make such an improvement? I get all that. All that being said, I think most people are pretty optimistic. The folks that I talk to are it's cautiously optimistic is a phrase we've thrown out a lot, but that's the truth. I think they can be really good. I hope they can be really good. They've got the talent. It just depends on the quarterback, and all those are true.
Yeah. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't think anybody or very few people would disagree with this if they're impartial observers of the SEC, with the exception of Alabama, Georgia, and possibly LSU. I don't think there is a team in the SEC that would not trade rosters with Texas A&M. So it's well acknowledged, well known that A&M has the talent to be a championship caliber team.
Better roster than everybody but two on their schedule.
Yeah.
And LSU, I don't know how close that is, but
well,
LSU,
you saw how that game went last year.
Exactly.
So,
who was I talking to?
close.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like taking the words out of my mouth. They're like, I think Jaden Daniels is good, but the way people are talking about him being like, we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, he was good.
He was good.
I just don't think he was Caleb Williams-esque the way they.
I would agree.
Yeah. We've got a caller. Let's go to the hotline. Tyler wants to talk a little Aggie football with us. Tyler, welcome into TexAgs Radio.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good, thanks. I'm calling from San Diego, so it's really early out here.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really enjoy the show. You guys do a terrific job, and thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
Hey, David, I've got a favor I want to ask you.
Let's go.
You've been around this business, this news, sports, TV stuff for a long time, and I wanted to see if you've got any buddies that you could tap into to try to find the ABC broadcast of that 1975 game between the Aggies and the Sips, because I think that is the game that changed the trajectory of Texas A&M football, because we beat Darrell Royal, and it really did start to, set the tone for the modern era of A&M football. And because they lived off of beating us after the war, and when we were, Darrell Royal was putting people on scholarship just because he didn't want to play against them. He had no intention of starting them. He just didn't want to play against them. Anyway, because there are no scholarship limitations. But anyway, I'm trying to. I think Keith Jackson and Bud Wilkinson were on that call, and I would love to be able to watch that game on YouTube or TexAgs or wherever, and it would just be. This all started when you had that interview last week with Bubba Bean, which I really, really enjoyed. Thanks so much for that. But anyway, I'll get off the phone and listen to your response to see if there's any chance that broadcast could be found in the ABC Sports archives somewhere.
Well, Tyler, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much for listening, and enjoy that weather there in San Diego. I don't think so, because when I worked at the other place, I won't say their name out loud, they were very territorial with their video. So if you were not an ABC, I'm already saying the name. If you weren't an ABC station, or a part of the ESPN Disney network, it was very hard to get video of games from that time. But I can ask. All I can do is ask, right?
You'd think somebody from A&M would have
I would think so.
Connection or something. But who knows?
That's not a bad idea to have all your games archived.
But now, was that the game where they beat Texas and then played Arkansas the next week and lost?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the same one.
Yeah.
Well, we're not focusing on the after. We're focusing on that moment.
But see, when I always say that A&M historically was its own worst enemy, when I moved here in '93, it didn't take me very long at all to figure out the two biggest days of the year were Christmas and when they played Texas, and Christmas came second.
Right.
And so who in their right mind would have ever thought that it was a good idea to play a game the week after playing Texas, especially an important game like that? And, I remember watching the game. They came out really flat. Of course they did. But you know what? Texas had done it back in '69, and it worked out for them. So we got to do it ourselves 6 years later, and it just didn't work out.
It didn't work out the way we wanted to.
Don't do things just because Texas did.
Believe it or not, I wasn't born for that game.
I believe it.
I was not far off.
I was
in the womb.
I was about 14.
You were?
Yeah.
Huh. Good times.
13 maybe. No, 14. Yeah, so I remember watching it.
Well, let's do this. Let's check in with somebody who was 14 not long ago. We go to the... I'm kidding, Jared. I'll get to you in a minute. Let's go behind the glass and actually talk to another one. Nick Savage behind the glass, our director extraordinaire. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What's up?
Oh, well, it's game week, number one, obviously. Get Aggie football this week. Super pumped for that. So this is probably the last time I get to bring this up with OB. You were completely right about the Texas Rangers.
Jokers.
Oh, boy, how they have wilted away.
They have the backbone of a jellyfish.
Crazy to see that. But, I mean, it's also crazy to see the Mariners in their fan base on Twitter just going crazy. But it's August. It's not September. So we'll see how that plays out. I think, again, OB, I don't think the Rangers are gone. They'll make a push. But now I'm kind of questioning, will they actually win the division like I thought they would? I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what. Both the Astros and Rangers, if one of those teams don't make the playoffs.
It'll be the Rangers.
Let's hope. I mean, for America's sake, let's hope. But, just kidding. You make those big trades, you think they're going to work. And for the Astros, they've probably worked, but and for the Rangers too, Scherzer's been great.
Well, the Aroldis Chapman trade is kind of blown up in their face.
And Broniger pointed this out. He says, Aroldis Chapman can throw 100 miles an hour, and his previous team's trying to get rid of him. What does that tell you? Well, he can't throw the strike zone.
Astros know him quite well. We got a little history with him.
Is that right?
Yeah, a little history. Nick, you remember the history?
Oh, I do.
You want to refresh the audience, or should we move on?
We can move on. I think everyone knows.
Now, what do you do? Since you brought it up.
Which was it? Game 6 against
Game 6.
Yeah, against the Astros Yankees in the ALCS, the AltuveBomb.com.
Oh.
Yeah, to send us to the World Series.
When y'all were cheating?
No, that's 2021.
Yeah, different year. The same year the Yankees were cheating? That same year?
The Rangers
Even if
need
they
to start
were OB,
cheating.
who cares?
I don't. Cheating's been a part of baseball as long as they've been playing baseball. I don't care.
I call it part of the game. Jared Schultz never cheated on a test that I know about. Jared, good morning, buddy.
Good morning.
You thought about it for a second. Like, do I tell the truth? Do I tell my mom's listening?
No, I was still thinking about the pain of the Rangers, but I don't know. I can't. OB was right. Okay, I'll give it to you. But I think we're making a push. We're gonna make a push.
They're fading like a Kevin Sumlin team in November.
To localize it.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, A&M soccer, they're still winless to start their 2023 campaign. But 6,700 fans showed up on Saturday night against Baylor. Game ended in a tie 1-1, even though the A&M put up 22 shots and Baylor put up 5, which is pretty remarkable. They play Tulsa this Thursday at 7.
G's old his alma mater.
Don't they celebrate ties in soccer?
No, there's no celebration.
It depends who it is. If you're tying Barcelona or like or is Barcelona good now, David?
Yeah, unfortunately.
They lost.
Then that's a
Did they lose?
Yeah,
they did.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Well, I thought I saw it on ESPN.
Oh God, that makes me happy. Go ahead. You were saying?
If you tie a good team, then that could be more of a win. But I think
the tie was good for Baylor. How about that?
Yeah, I mean normally A&M schedules a team they think they're going to win for the Fish Camp game. So.
Well, and Baylor's an old foe that I think A&M had beaten 12 out of the last 13 times, something like that. They outshot them considerably. The problem was all the shots were directly at the keeper. And honestly, there was only, I think, 6 shots on goal. I don't know if you know this, OB. I watched some of the games.
I do know that.
Oh, okay, just making sure.
Don't you do some sideline reporting or something?
I do a little color commentary. And by color, I mean I color outside the lines. But yeah, I'm there. What else, Jared?
Jamie Morrison era is officially here at A&M. Aggie volleyball started their season 2-0 with wins over Omaha
bad. Barcelona
and
came back and
Pepperdine.
won.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought they won 3-2. I saw somebody say, "What a game!" So I was hoping you were right.
They came back. Never mind. My bad.
Started 2-0 with wins over Omaha and Pepperdine, and now they go to Ohio to play Wright State, Bowling Green, and Loyola Chicago.
Pepperdine. I don't know what it's like now, but Pepperdine, I think, has a pretty good history in that sport.
I'm going to take your word for it. Hey, Jacob asked on the YouTube page, Nuño, OB, do you all hate the new clock rules as much as I do?
The
clock's going to keep running. And
as a first down, except for the last 2 minutes?
Yeah.
No, I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either.
I've never understood why you would stop the clock for a first down.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Look, there's a part of me that agrees the games are too long. And maybe it's because I'm a media member. Maybe. I hope that's not the reason I say that. But, like, what are they, 4.5 hours?
They can be.
Often?
They can be, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's what I wish they would do is, like, if you get hurt, that you have to stay, that you can't, if you leave the field because of injury, that you have to stay, you can't come back in for the rest of that series.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Until the next exchange.
I agree with that.
And that would stop a big part of the people faking injuries.
I agree with that. Let's hit a break here. We'll come back.
Speed up the game, too.
It will speed up the game. When we come back here on TexAgs Radio, we're going to look back at 0 week. I know you got some hot sports takes, OB. That's what you do. But before we do that, we're not going to be creepy about it. We're not going to profess our love. We're just going to give you the facts.
Facts.
The facts about Fargo's.
The Fargo facts.
Well, there's a fact. They're not open today.
That's fact.
That's a fact.
That's a Fargo fact.
But they're open tomorrow.
Yes, that is a fact. And you know what else is a fact about Fargo's fact is that you get those fabulous rib tips on Tuesday.
That's just a fact. We're just keeping it
it's
to
a fabulous Fargo fact.
And here's another fact. Once they're gone,
they're gone.
So
they're finished.
I'm not lying about that. That's
another Fargo's fabulous fact. They're finished once they're gone.
And then on Wednesdays, they have another thing that is called a chopped beef on a what?
On a baked potato.
And that's a fact.
That is a fact.
I think we've said fact too many times. There was a guy on the radio who used to say fact. Fact. Who was that? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know.
I don't like that.
But they're fantastic.
Thursdays, look, it's a fact that they have
macaroni and cheese and a big fat pork chop.
That's a fact. And on Friday,
now we're finished with the F's. That was C words,
right?
And that's the catfish, coleslaw, corn, and crunchy hush puppies.
And then if you're in town for the game on Saturday,
and who's not going to be?
Everybody's coming.
And if you want some rib tips, they got them again. As well as beef.
Another fact. Been around for 22 years.
That's a fact. That's fascinating.
Yep. 1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan. That's a fact.
That is a fact.
Without a doubt, the best barbecue in town.
Because it's true. It's not false.
It's a fact.
It's a fact.
It's Fargo's.
Good food.
Check it out. And we are back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Rollo Insurance Studio. Really looking forward to actual games. But we did have some games this week, 0 week games to talk about. It is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. OB, let's kind of look back at some of these games. I know you are anti-Notre Dame. You're out, right? Yes. Sam Hartman's the truth.
Yeah, he's a good quarterback. But if you're all this does is raise more questions to me about Tyler Buchner, right? If you can't, and I'll tell you where I'm getting. If you're quarterbacking Notre Dame and you can't have a big game against Navy,
right?
And I understand this isn't Navy from 10 years ago. Navy is a struggling program even for Navy now, and you can't go out and have a big game against Navy. What are we talking about?
Yep.
It's Notre Dame against Navy. So, yes, Sam Hartman's a very good quarterback, and I think he's going to be a Heisman contender because,
they're going to win a lot of games.
Quarterback of Notre Dame. And as we see, if you're from Notre Dame, you get preferential treatment. The media loves Notre Dame. The media and Notre Dame are kind of like Brokeback Mountain. I can't quit you. That's how it is. So when they have somebody from Notre Dame, the media is always all over it, national media. So Sam Hartman, but again, it's against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And that's why I go back to Tyler Buchner at Alabama. He was a quarterback at Notre Dame and lost to Marshall.
Right.
So that's not meant to be a dismissal of Sam Hartman. I'm just saying, if you're the quarterback of Notre Dame, you should have a big game against Navy, especially a bad Navy team.
Yep, I can agree with that. But to go out and do it, especially as I think the Notre Dame offense the last couple of years has not been very good, I think that's a step in the right direction. Also, did you see that he wore a piece of his rib as a necklace?
I didn't see that. So he had a rib tip.
So he did have a rib tip. He had it removed last year as a procedure to prevent future blood clots, and he put it on a necklace and wore his rib. Threw for 251 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's the third Notre Dame quarterback since 2000, joining Jimmy Clausen, twice, and Book once to throw for at least 250 and 4 touchdowns while completing 80% of his passes. That is according to sports reference data.
Yeah. You know, people sometimes told me I wear my heart on my sleeve. So
he wears his rib on his neck.
necklace. Yeah.
Well, how about USC? So before we get to Zachariah Branch, to me,
Great name.
Isn't that a good? If I remember correctly, A&M was in the mix. But
yeah.
Before he had some heroics before his last heroic, but this was a defensive. I don't want to say atrocity, but they didn't show me I mean, they won comfortably, I guess, but they didn't show me a lot. Last season, they were 125th nationally in yards allowed per play. This year, they gave up 5.5 yards per play and 6.2 yards per rush against who? San
Jose State.
Yeah.
And I know San Jose State is not the pushover it used to be, but let's face it, San Jose State is still, I mean, it's a different class. It's a heavyweight going against a welterweight.
USC was up by 21 points, and then San Jose State cuts it to 14 with 1:50 left in the game.
In the game?
Excuse me, in the third quarter.
Yeah.
Sorry, in the third quarter. So, and that's when Zachariah Branch took matters in his own hands. Went, 99 yards, whatever it was, for the score. He had a phenomenal game. What a great debut. It's interesting.
Very Christian Kirk-like.
Yeah.
In his debut at A&M.
But like, if there's a really good quarterback who can improvise at A&M, who are they going to bring up? Johnny Football, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. If Connor goes crazy and runs and does some, that's what they're going to bring up. At USC, if you can run back, you can catch passes out, and do it, you're going to bring up Reggie Bush.
And if I'm a USC fan, I'm walking away from that one thinking, oh God, are we going to be able to outscore every team?
Right.
Because again, if you lose twice, you're out. And okay, since we're talking about Sam Hartman, that defense you saw for USC, I mean, why wouldn't you think when that game comes that Sam Hartman's not going to light them up?
Yeah, I think he will light them up. And Notre Dame has an excellent offensive line. 2 years ago, they were dealing with some of the same problems A&M was dealing with, young offensive line. And if you remember, they struggled, especially initial part of the season. But all that being said, they've grown into a really nice offensive line. They can run the ball, they can pass, so it'll be very interesting when those two teams play. I did not watch the Vandy-Hawaii game. It was on during the soccer game.
I saw some of it.
I was getting updates. Sutton actually was watching, telling me he was listening on radio and watching the Hawaii game.
I actually got to watch a lot of that game.
Did you?
It was a pretty good one. Yeah, I mean, Hawaii had the ball with a chance to drive down and win it, but the first play they threw a pick. So kind of an anticlimactic ending, but it was a good game.
A lot of mistakes is what my understanding of Vandy.
Yeah.
So Vandy's in midseason form.
Yep.
Except that they won.
I think, didn't they score like 60 points last year against Hawaii?
Yes,
Yeah.
So I think
and their stadium's all broken, like they're rebuilding it, and half of it's closed.
It's
not a good look.
Half of it's closed, but
who
cares, right? Yeah. I said this before, and I still believe, and no one would ever, if it's true, no one would ever admit it, but I still believe that the SEC came to Vanderbilt and said, either you start putting some money back into your program, or we can look about getting somebody to replace you. Because the fact that Vanderbilt, after all these years, is finally given that money that the athletic department makes back to the athletic department.
Well,
it can't be a coincidence.
But you need a Vandy. You need one bad team to beat up on.
No, you don't.
I don't know. I kind of like beating SEC teams I want to beat them all.
But A&M doesn't play them. In fact, the SEC, notice that the SEC threw Texas a bone.
Of course.
That Vandy in their first year. Of course. You think that's an accident?
That'd be so great if Vandy won. It'd be amazing.
Really think. How bad would that be if Vandy is doing a horns down at you?
Oh, that'd be so awesome. I would frame it. Jared, I know there's a couple of text messages out there on by the way, the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know there's one asking about is the A&M game going to be televised, if you'd like to read that, or I just read it, so you don't have to. It's going to be on ESPN.
Great job, David. Thanks for including me.
You're welcome. You can read another one. Go ahead.
We'll say Well, now you put me on the spot. I gotta find one. So 903 says, am I the only one who's been disappointed in the season opener since 2018? This year, more than most, I want to see a dominant offensive performance. Less than 50 points will be a disappointment.
Yeah, I'm 100% with that. I've seen so many games where you think, good teams destroy overmatched opponents. Destroy them. So go out and destroy New Mexico. Even when they beat New Mexico in 2021.
2021, yeah.
35-7. I think this one was, it just comes around feeling like you just had a salad for dinner. You're just not satisfied.
You get a lot of salads, though. You're a salad
guy. Too
guy.
many, man. Too many salads.
You're a salad guy.
It's only because I can only afford lettuce. I don't make Nuño money.
Well, who does?
That's a good point.
I mean, I got 4 kids. I got no money, buddy. I planted another money tree in the backyard. I'm like, how am I going to pay for these shoes? Anyway, we'll get into more of that when we come back, OB.
It's my salad days.
I want to talk about the thin margins of winning in the SEC. The thin margins. And we're going to take a look at it from a 2006 Florida perspective. All right?
Gators.
The Gators.
I covered some of their games that year.
You were telling me, yeah. So we'll talk about that. But before we do that, it's time to talk about the Charge Apparel. That is our good friends out there. Love Travis and Tucker, who started the Charge Apparel, an Aggie-owned, purpose-driven apparel brand that's really taking care of veterans out there. Aggie-owned and operated by 2 Aggies, class of 2014. They met in the Parsons Mounted Cavalry in the Corps of Cadets. And in the Corps, Tucker was a member of E2, and Travis was a part of Squadron 2, veteran-owned and operated upon graduating from A&M. Tucker was commissioned into the U.S. Army, and Travis commissioned to the Air Force. And after they separated from the military, they formed the Charge Apparel as a way to continue to serve our country and veterans through nonprofits that they support. An ode to the 12th man, the Charge Apparel stands in support of their servicemen and women by donating 12% of their total sales to organizations that support U.S. veterans and mental health initiatives. But the clothes, they're awesome, right? They are just so nice. Premier fabric, lightweight, slightly tailored to fit through your chest and your arms, designed to make you look and feel your absolute best. You need to check them out. Help the good guys win off the field with this football season by supporting the Charge Apparel. Visit them at thechargeapparel.com or find them on Instagram, The Charge Apparel, or on Twitter, The Charge Brand. Who's this, OB?
I think so. Bob Seger.
Roberto
Seger.
TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We had a text message that caught my attention, OB.
Oh, okay. Well, they usually do.
Jared?
So CJ says, hey guys, on DirecTV, what channel is ESPN and what time is the game Saturday?
In the time that Jared wrote that text message, the 12 to 15 seconds, I found the answer to that in half that time by doing one thing.
Google it.
Mr. Google.
Well, I
know, David, you're not going to be Mr. Country Music anymore. Now you're Mr. Google.
I don't know where this gentleman lives, and I don't know.
Parts unknown.
And I don't know if all the DirecTV, no matter where you live, if the DirecTV channels are the same.
Then why would he ask me?
I don't know. But I know that if you're in College Station, because I have DirecTV, it's 206 for ESPN.
And by the way,
6:30 kickoff.
6, I believe.
6?
Yeah. And by the way, CJ, I'm playing with you a little bit, of course, because I know you're a loyal listener and stuff. I think the reason he asked us is because we do a good job of being like, hopefully you feel like you know us, right? Like, I'm going to just text Nuño. Like, why not? Why wouldn't I text? He's my buddy.
Yeah.
So that from that respect.
We love our TexAgs family.
In fact, in that respect, OB, what's your phone number? Let's just tell him.
Yeah, it's 512-754.
Somebody on the text message board is going to put it out there. CJ.
I don't care. You know what? If somebody called it, I would give if you were serious, I would give my phone number, because all I do is if I didn't recognize the number, I wouldn't answer.
I don't answer anyway. All right, Olin. So I haven't finished it all. I've watched 94%. There's a few minutes I need to finish on the Florida documentary. What is it called? The
Swamp Things?
Swamp Kings.
Swamp Kings. Right. I think people love to complain, right?
Yeah.
Did the documentary do what I wanted it to do? No. I wanted it to be more a deep dive of how corrupt, not corrupt, whatever, like how dark that era was for Florida football, right? Even though they were winning, all the things happening off the field. It didn't really, the parts that I've seen didn't really get into all that. Maybe showed Urban's temper and how the games would really eat at him and the military style. A couple things I took away from it, and I know you haven't seen it, and you may never watch it. Steve Adazio, all over it. He's in it quite a bit, sounds like the same coach we have.
Coach.
Yeah, it was great. I loved seeing him out there, and very successful, right? That part of it caught my attention. The other part, they went 13-1 that year.
I remember that year.
Very easily could have been a 9 or 10 win team. And the reason I say that is just watching it and being reminded of how that season played out.
They had 5 games with a touchdown or less. They won.
Yes. And 2 one-point games. Okay? One was against Tennessee, and Tennessee had a chance to win on the final drive, but Eric Ainge throws an interception. Okay? And the other one, you can remind us.
Yeah, it was South Carolina, and South Carolina was kicking a field goal to win the game on the last play,
right?
If my memory serves, and it was blocked.
Ray McDonald blocked it. He also blocked, Jarvis Moss blocked the extra point and a potential game-winning 48-yard field goal. In that same game, Ray McDonald blocked the field goal as well. So and by the way, we know how 1 or 2 losses can change the way the rest of the season goes. Mentally, the way you attack games. And some of the losses that Florida had in their 2 championship seasons, they lost, against Auburn a couple times in a row, by the way, mid-season. And they said to themselves, we can't lose another game because in the SEC, obviously, you can't lose twice and during the BCS era especially, you're not going to get into the championship game. The margins were so thin for A&M last year. Not that I'm comparing them per se to Florida, a historically really good Florida team that demolished Ohio State, right?
Yeah, I was there for that. Golly.
But it's to illustrate the point. That is life in the SEC, and it's the teams that I think have good chemistry, know how to go through the fires together, that can get it done. The stories are kind of similar with the way that number 1 recruiting class and Tebow coming in, and there's a lot of parallels that you can make because they hadn't had a recruiting class that high, and all these guys are coming in. But A&M played in how many one-score games last year?
5.
They lost 5.
Lost 5.
Lost 5 one-score games, and they won another.
Yeah, they won 2.
Arkansas
and Miami.
And Miami, yeah. So
I think that's one-score game.
You have to know how to win. With all the issues that A&M had last year, and they had a lot, these games came down to the wire. That's going to be life. And you can look at the entire SEC and say the exact same thing. You can say the same thing about LSU, who had the better season in the West. You could say the same thing about Alabama, how close they were to losing to not only A&M, Texas, and I think there was and how close they were to winning the LSU game.
Yeah, and the Tennessee game. And, but the other game you're referencing was Arkansas and even Ole Miss. Those were pretty competitive games.
Yep.
Ole Miss even more so than Arkansas, but Arkansas was real competitive until a long run on a 3rd and long by Milroe,
right,
where there was an egregious holding penalty that didn't get called, and then everything broke loose for Alabama after that. But, yeah, your point is well taken, and I think we understand it. That just continues to underline it, is that it's not going to be easy. If you wanted it to be easy, you should have stayed in the Big 12. But you got to man up and be able to win the close games, be able to play your best when the plays matter the most.
So I'm watching this documentary, and I'm kind of stressed watching it, right? Because you're like, how do they, not stressed, but you know what I mean? Like, you feel the moments, like what you must feel like as a fan, and it takes me back to how I felt through all those games. Like the South Carolina game, like, are we really watching this disaster? And then to think in the 4th quarter, they might end up winning this freaking game.
And then didn't make the big stops on defense when you needed to.
Right.
But yeah, they had their, despite all the pratfalls and the slapstick comedy of the first quarter and getting down 17-0, they had a chance to win that game in the 4th quarter.
People bring up the Arkansas game. Yeah, but you won a one-score game. Yeah, they did. And you barely won it because they missed the field goal.
A&M missed the field goal in that
right
game.
Before. Like, wasn't the exact drive right before that they missed it?
I think so.
Yeah.
So A&M missed the field goal. As well as Moose played all year, he was, and he'd tell you this, he was awful in that game. He had 2 big penalties that wiped out long runs, and then he slowed down on a deep pass that if he just kept running, it would have been a touchdown. So both teams made mistakes.
Yeah, they did. And look, if if KJ doesn't make the biggest mistake, who knows how that game goes, right?
Well, yeah, but you know what? If Chris Russell doesn't come in and knock the ball loose, KJ doesn't make that mistake.
You're right about that. You're absolutely right about that. So when you look at the A&M schedule, there's going to be a couple games, more than one, that are going to come down to the wire. How many of those games, though, can actually you feel good about blowouts or comfortable wins?
Well,
You need some of those, too, because you look at that Florida team that I'm talking about, like, yeah, they had a bunch of close games, but they had some 42-0s. And let's see, they had a 62-0 versus Western Carolina. That was
and 42-0 was Central Florida before they were good.
But Ohio State was a beatdown.
God, that was crazy. And that goes back to the importance of a pass rush, which A&M didn't have. But I was at that game, and that poor Troy Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, he was just under assault the whole game. I think he had like 80 yards passing. And I couldn't remember how many sacks they had, but the stars of that game were the two Florida defensive ends that just wore out. I remember those two big tackles from Ohio State. I couldn't tell you their names now, but I can still see them. One of them played pro football for the Niners. But anyway, they just dominated with the pass rush. That's what they won that game because of defense.
Yeah, and there's a couple players on the Florida team that you see in that first year where they win the championship, where the young players hadn't really before, midway through the season. And I forget, it was one of the linebackers. Like his name is escaping.
Brandon Spikes?
Is he Spikes had. Was he the freshman?
He might have been.
The freshman. It's either Brandon Spikes or the other one. I'm sorry, I forget the name at the moment. But he hadn't grown into a leadership role. He didn't really work hard. He was just there based on his athletic ability. He didn't take it as serious as the other guy. And I think Brandon Spikes was the freshman. The bottom line is he grew into being a leader.
Yeah.
He had guys in front of him showing him how to this is how you come to work.
Right.
And there were certain players on that team, Tebow included, that really liked the Urban Meyer military school style of football that he was preaching there. And there were some other guys that didn't like it at all. Like that, I just want to play ball. I don't want to do all this. But once he turned the corner, his game elevated, the defense elevated, and that was a game changer. And I am hoping that foundation was laid for A&M this past year.
No, let's hope so. We're going to start finding out in about 5 days. But again, that people talk about Tebow. First of all, he was a backup that year. Chris Leak was the starter. They were good on defense. Won on that championship.
Yeah.
And you look at A&M, and there's defensive talent all over the place, but they've got to get a pass rush. They got to get better against the run. Do that, and there's every reason to think they're going to be better in both of those things.
Yeah.
Because they're grown up. So, but do that, and who knows what happens. But the offense has to be better. But I'm looking at these that Florida season right now, and I'm seeing they gave up 7 points, 0.
Brandon Seiler's the name I was thinking
Okay,
of.
Brandon
Seiler, who was he was teaching Spikes how to be a guy.
And 2
Spikes
years later,
already.
Spikes was a beast. He was the predator. 7-0, 27, 13, 10, 17, 14, 19, 16, 0, 14, then 28 in Arkansas with Darren McFadden and Felix Jones in the SEC championship in 14. So that Florida defense, every game but one, they allowed 20 points or less that year.
Yeah.
Man, what a good defense team.
Well,
Safety named Reggie Nelson.
And do you remember, because sometimes I have to be.
That's Charlie Strong, by the way.
I remember things after. That's right. I remember things differently after, right? During, this is what I felt, but then you have the time to kind of move away from it. Was there a lot made of Chris Leak leaving games to allow Tebow? Was it a controversy, or was it just did Chris Leak have a problem with it?
No, it was, in fact, again, they had certain packages for Tebow.
Yeah.
And he'd come in, he'd run some, and he'd do that jump pass.
The first one was ridiculous,
but
and
it was Chris Leak's show.
Yeah.
And that gets distorted. People want to say, Tim Tebow was 2 national champions. He was on the team for 1. He was on the team. And, yeah, he played some as a backup quarterback.
Well,
but that was Chris Leak's team.
But he had some integral, like some plays that mattered in that season.
I'm sure he had some,
Yeah.
but again,
It was Chris Leak as the
I can
star.
remember Chris Leak running like 60-yard touchdown against Alabama. I was at that game.
And by the way, I saw Percy. I always thought of Percy Harvin as not a big dude. He's bigger than I
Yeah.
thought.
He was their best player. This problem was he had migraine headaches, and he'd have some injuries, and if
He almost didn't play.
And they had a heck of an offensive line. They had the Pouncey brothers,
Oh yeah, they make quite an appearance. I mean, they don't talk, but they show them quite a bit.
and the receivers weren't spectacular, but they were all good.
Yeah. All right, let's hit a break.
But it was defense.
We'll get into some of these text messages and some thoughts here on TexAgs Radio. Before we do that, let's talk to our friends at QC Kinetics. We'll talk about them. If you got knee pain that's getting worse, stop thinking about, surgery, steroids, or just ignoring it. Like, why live with pain? You don't need to when you got the good people at QC Kinetics in town. Don't let them tell you that steroids and surgery are your only option. Call them up and learn all about it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, but you should talk to the professionals right now. They'll help make that pain go away with an all-natural, advanced regenerative medicine treatment. They're helping people here every single day in the Brazos Valley with these amazing natural treatments that restore and repair that damaged joint tissue. It's really like feeling like you're 14 again, 17, 20, like the prime of your life. Regenerative medicine uses concentrated healing agents from your own body to stimulate that damaged tissue in your joints so they can work like they're supposed to, and there is zero downtime. You go in, you come out. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in this exciting medical breakthrough. Patients here are getting real, lasting relief and are saying no to surgery and no to drugs. If you've got pain due to injury or arthritis, this is a remarkable option that you need to check out, and the consultation is absolutely free. 979-452-6000. QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. That is 979-452-6000. We're back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. By the way, if you're looking for a place to unwind and enjoy good drinks and food, look no further than the Angry Elephant, where patrons live by the slogan, like your politics, love your bar. All right, Jared, what's going on over there?
Yeah, we got a text message from a 281 number. It says, other than Wegman, who would be one player on each side of the ball that would lead us to the most wins if they perform at a first-team All-SEC level?
On the offensive side, I mean, I think Bryce Foster.
Yeah. Or Layden Robb.
So one of those guys, right? Hopefully more than one, but one of those guys, right?
Trey Zune, on that left tackle.
Defensively, have your pick on the line. I think McKinley Jackson is going to be at that level.
Okay, at an all-SEC level, Edgerrin Cooper.
If Edge Cooper is all SEC, then the defense is going to be
what was the weakest part of the defense last year?
The linebacker.
Linebacker. So if you got a linebacker playing at an all SEC level, then I think you've solved a lot of problems.
What about one of the cornerbacks?
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the cornerback. I think I've said it before. I think they have more depth at cornerback now than they had last year, and I like the kid from North Carolina.
Tony Grimes,
and
Josh
I like
DeBerry.
DeBerry from Boston College.
Sam McCall, Florida State.
And we're hearing about Javon Thomas.
Javon Thomas.
Where were these guys last year? So why are we so concerned about the depth at corner?
Because we want to see it.
Okay.
That's why, all right?
But these guys have actually played. Most of these guys we just mentioned played. And Deuce is still around. And I wonder if Bobby Taylor's ever going to get healthy.
I think he's working at it. He's working at it. Let's try to get one more text message there from Jared.
Yeah, Joe from Bryan says, hot take, but we will not have a single 1,000-plus yard rusher, but 3 750-plus running backs. It's a lot of yards.
Yeah, take that.
I think somebody will emerge as the alpha. If you haven't listened to the Luchador podcast, after the show, I suggest you listen to it. Billy has some great insight into that. But Amari Daniels.
If you have 3 alphas?
3,000s? Or
3 alphas.
I'll take that.
I covered a A&M team with 3 alpha running backs: Greg Hill, Rodney Thomas, and Leland McElroy.
OB, football week, the go hour, which is always fun, went by super fast today.
Yeah, and not as much silliness.
No, but
Now we got to get down to business now.
yeah, it's business time, baby.
Business.
Yeah.
I'm a businessman.
I still think you should watch the Flight of the Conchords
Why?
because they got a song called Business
Oh, okay.
Business Time.
Yeah, we're
Pretty
like
good.
BTO, taking care of business.
All right, and your favorite group is BTS, right?
No,
Yeah, I think it is.
what's BTS?
Google it. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, Tom Hart, Billy Liucci, and a lot of you. It's TexAgs Radio. All right, we're back. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's talk to a real professional, a guy that will probably call a few. Jared asked me a moment ago there at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, is he going to call some A&M games? You know he will, and you know he's going to stop by the Republic. Tom Hart here on the hotline from the SEC Network and ESPN. Tom, good morning, buddy.
You said a real professional. I kept looking over my shoulder, like who we're going to get? Who's the special guest? This is exciting. I love the music, though. I mean, it wasn't what I really wanted, which is some BTS. Watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. But very much more game week oriented than anything BTS can bring. Dynamite excluded, obviously.
I showed OB some pics. He was like, no, I definitely don't listen to them. Definitely don't.
So quick side note, when we did Korean baseball during the pandemic, we had a guest on at least one guest every game because it was 4:00 in the morning and people, nobody cared about the game itself. We tried really hard to get BTS to come on with us, and we couldn't get a call back. Shocking. I know. It would have been a massive hit.
Well, I think maybe next year there's a guy in Puerto Rico I recommend, but we can talk about that some other time.
Okay, good.
Let's talk about your last free weekend, man. What'd you do?
Oh, I did a little bit of everything. I went to the Falcons game Thursday, Falcons-Steelers. Falcons played all their backups, and Steelers just trounced them, but it was good to get in the football flow of things. I went to the Tour Championship on Friday. It was about temperatures about the surface of the sun. It was about 120 out at East Lake Golf Course and hung out. And then watched some high school basketball Saturday morning. Had daddy-daughter night, date night Saturday night. And now I'm, elbow deep in prep, getting ready for Alabama this weekend. Alabama to Middle Tennessee State.
So what do you think? We'll start there with Alabama and the whole quarterback situation, the expectations. Like some people think they're vulnerable. I'm one of those that I think they're vulnerable, but I think those questions can be answered really quickly if that makes any sense.
Yeah, we throw the word culture around a lot, and I don't know that we necessarily define it very often. But Alabama's culture has been in place for a long time, and it's why Nick Saban has been able to change coordinators almost as often as I change my hats and still not miss a beat. He brings guys in like Bill O'Brien, who we've talked about a lot on this show that from his days in Houston. And he says, listen, I know you've been an NFL head coach, and I know you're the head coach at Penn State, and I know you're an NFL GM, but you're running my offense, the Alabama offense. You're going to do it our way, and you're going to use the terminology that we use. Nothing changes at Alabama. It's that consistency from year in and year out. The same defense, the same lingo, the same installation schedule, probably, depending on who they have. And so they get Kevin Steele back on the defensive side, and Tommy Rees comes in on the offensive side. And I don't think they're going to miss a beat once they get this quarterback situation figured out. Now, week 2, they get Texas. That's going to be the game of the year to that point in college football, and maybe all year, depending upon what happens. I don't think they're going to name a starting quarterback until after the Texas game. I think it's going to be either or. I think you'll see 2, maybe 3 guys Saturday night, and then they'll whittle it down, and somebody will have earned the playing time, majority of it against Texas. But we won't really know until we flip the TV on and see who's taking those snaps.
I can't believe I'm going to ask this, but would you be surprised if Bama goes 11-1, and would you be surprised if they go 9-3? Something we haven't seen.
I'd be surprised if they go 9-3. I don't think it's wise to bet against Nick Saban. I know that's low hanging fruit. It's easy to say. The SEC is wildly competitive, and LSU's off to a great start under Brian Kelly last year. Can they repeat it? Do they have the culture to repeat it? Do they have everything in place to get back to where they need to be? And that's the competition, right? I mean, no, would not surprise me if Georgia beats Alabama head to head, and I wouldn't be shocked if LSU beats Alabama head to head. But there's not another loss on their schedule, in my opinion. Even though they'll get, that you could substitute. Let's say from an A&M perspective, you could take out the LSU game and lose to A&M, sure. But they're not losing to both. That's just not his MO. Usually when they lose a game, especially in season, that's just the motivation and ammunition Nick Saban needs to make sure they don't lose another one. And by the way, not to make this an Alabama sell job and overstate the culture situation, but they were the one team last year in the bowl season, however they pulled it off, that had their two superstars playing in a bowl game that wasn't a college football playoff game. And I think that kind of speaks to what the expectations are there and what he has established over the years.
This is a great point right there. I want to go back to something you tweeted, your unscientific breakdown of 3 key tiers of teams. Tier 1, better than most. Tier 2, better than most think. And Tier 3 can scare the best teams on their schedule. I say that because an A&M part of it's coming. Where does A&M fit in that tier system in your eyes?
Okay, now to be clear, and why I threw out unscientific, those weren't in order, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. It was just 3 separate groupings of interesting titles to teams. Tier 1, of the ones that everybody knows, the one I put in there that maybe people weren't aware of or will soon learn was Washington. We had them in the bowl game last year in San Antonio against Texas. Michael Penix Jr. is healthy. They're the number 1 offense in the country. They are unstoppable, and they just had this great energy about them under Kalen DeBoer that I think they keep rolling. So they were kind of the add-in in there. And then the other ones were, like, who do you not want to face? Who could beat anybody at any given time? And usually that's quarterback driven, like Arkansas with KJ Jefferson. Like he could get hot and carry a team, and he could be that one pitcher who throws a 130 pitch no hitter. He's gonna go out there at some point this season for Arkansas and grind out an upset win by carrying the ball 18 times and by throwing for 280 yards and 4 touchdowns. And people are going to go, man, that now he can't do it every week. He just can't have that kind of workload on him. I think A&M falls in the so I did a Tier 1, and then if you're due within the SEC West at Tier 2, it's okay. Tier 1 is Alabama and LSU. Who else is right there could beat either one of those teams? And I think A&M's probably in a category by themselves there. I mean, could Ole Miss beat either one of those teams? Well, they're probably going to give up a lot of points and a lot of yardage, even though if they can score a bunch under Lane. But I don't know anybody else in the West that would fall in that category. I think my question, David, is like, can the quarterback position take a leap for A&M this year? Can it go from a Zach Calzada who can have that one magical night, but otherwise be inconsistent, to being dependable to win big games and deliver on a nightly basis? And that's always a 2-part answer because it's never just the quarterback. And the answer to me lies in that wide receiving core. Because if those dudes can step up and live up to their expectation and to their recruiting rankings, then either one of those quarterbacks can have a monster season because those wide receivers could have magical years. They just got to get the ball.
So let's say A&M scores 34 points a game and Connor is top 7, all right, upper half of the conference. What does that mean for the kind of season that they have? Just those 2 variables right there.
What did A&M average a game last year offensively? Like 22?
Yeah, not good.
I mean, that's not bad. That's awful. That's a team that brings in a top 70 recruiting class year after year and is settled down on their 4th quarterback. That's not a team with the number 1 recruiting class and all this talent. So I think that obviously is not going to be a 22-point game, 22-point a game offense. What's the running back situation look like? Like, what are you hearing?
Oh, three very capable guys. I think it's going to be those three guys going at it. Probably Amari Daniels getting the start initially, who looked good last year, had a great scrimmage. Ruben Owens is the truth. And Le'Veon Moss, I mean, let's not forget about him. He's a guy that Alabama wanted. Everybody wanted him. And he's there, and he played well as a freshman.
I can't wait to watch Ruben Owens. I mean, I think he's going to be legit. It's been a while since saying it. 10 years since they had a 5-star running back come in. No, if they're scoring 35 points a game, then everybody's happy. You're still going to lose some, right? And you're going to have some weekends where that 35 turns into 50. To me, the most pivotal game on the schedule, and I've got a historical comp for this, and I heard Liucci talk about it the other day, is the Miami game. And he brought up the fact that the Miami game represents like just this feeling, right? Like if you win that game, everything's great. If you lose it, now all of a sudden, what's going on with the fan base? What are the negative feelings in the locker room and the like? Go back to Ed Ogeron's last season at LSU, just 2 years removed from a national championship. They went out to UCLA. Now, by the way, I don't think Miami's a great team. I think A&M should win that game on paper 9 times out of 10. However, the same thing could be said for LSU going out to UCLA. And that was, I think, game 2 of the season for LSU. It may have been the opener, but I think it was game 2. You remember Ogeron was talking junk to the fan and making fun of his baby blue shirt. What are the odds? They just happened to be wearing it. And they lost. And that season, this is going to sound like hyperbole, that season was unrecoverable at that point. Because then all the doubters came in, and then all the NFL guys started talking about, well, my ankle hurts or my foot's bad, and why do I want to grind it out because we don't have an elite team? Oh, this isn't the team that won the national championship with Joe Burrow and 3 NFL wide receivers and all pros 2 years ago. And I think that is a challenge in the college football world, especially with only a 4-team playoff for one more year. Is if you lose one of those games, you're likely out. And if you thought you had national championship aspirations, then how do you rebound that early in the season to keep a team up? So I just think that is the number one pivot point for this A&M team in terms of what it could do to a team psyche and a fan psyche that early in the season.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, a team with national championship aspirations that might have the quarterback to do it, Notre Dame. Sam Hartman, man, he did the Wake thing there with Notre Dame. Now, expected against Navy, but still, it's a great start to his tenure there.
Yeah, if you watch that game, Navy just looked outmanned, especially defensively. That's really where I was paying more attention to the game. That secondary looked small and slow and couldn't keep up with those receivers and PI penalties left and right. But that's fine. Like, you traveled a third of the way around the world to go play a game. You took care of business. You've got a coach that last year had one of the worst losses in program history when they lost at home to Marshall. And so he needs all of the positives that he can find. And they went out and got one of the best quarterbacks who is playing in a wildly different system. And I think that was the question. I don't think anybody questioned Sam Hartman, but it's like, okay, how's he going to look now? And we talk about psyche, and he's a little bit older than most, and he's got it together by all accounts, talking to people who know him, just a great dude. But I do think that there is a big challenge in an individual psyche when he goes from a program in little old Winston-Salem, North Carolina, that doesn't get a whole lot of national attention and therefore doesn't carry much pressure, to then being the quarterback at Notre Dame with Joe Montana standing on the sideline. Like, that's pressure. And when things go well, you get all the accolades. When things don't go well, you run into trouble. So I was impressed. I'm not ready to say they're a national championship contender based on the big leap they have to make from last year. But because of their name and because of their history, they're going to be in the conversation. And that's fine. And that, by the way, that's also good for their ACC opponents to get them on the schedule this year.
Tom, is there an elite quarterback in the SEC or just a bunch of really good ones, like elite? Do you put KJ in the elite category or Will Rogers? Or
those are the two guys I would start. In fact, I would start with Will Rogers. And I think we'll learn more about that as the season goes on for Mississippi State, because he is playing in a new system. And you can argue about how different it's going to be and how often he's going to be under center versus operating out of a shotgun and turning his back to the defense versus being able to scan the field. The dude's played in essentially nothing but the air raid since he was in middle school. Now, I would say that as a quarterback, that's the offense you'd like to start in because that gets you more reps on every route of the passing tree, and you just spend day after day after day throwing the ball. It'd be like a shortstop taking 1,000 ground balls a day. Doesn't matter where they put you along the infield. If you take 1,000 ground balls a day, you get those reps. You're going to be better than the guy who took 200 a day. But he's got the talent to do so. And I think we excused a lot of his numbers based on Mike Leach's system. And historically, that's fair to do. But he had a proficiency early on when he first stepped foot on campus for running that offense, for identifying the advantages that they had. And within that offense, thinking on your feet and making post-snap decisions, the processing is really quick. It's what made Bryce Young elite at that position is the processing. It's pre-snap recognition. And then when the ball hits your hand, now it looks different. Where am I going? I don't have to think about it. It's boom, boom. I think KJ Jefferson, especially how he played late in the season last year, has the talent, and he's got a really good running back next to him to take a little bit of pressure off to do all of those things. He's missing some playmakers on the perimeter, and like I said earlier, he's going to be like Earl Campbell was in many ways. They're going to lean so heavily on him that they're going to have to find a way to have a pitch count to protect that guy. And then in the big games, they'll rip that pitch count up and they'll say, "Go win it for us, big boy." And but I would go Rodgers 1, Jefferson 2, and then there's a lot of really, really good quarterbacks after that. There's no doubt.
And Jaden Daniels in that next grouping, probably.
Yeah, and he can be what KJ Jefferson is. I think what they're going to do offensively, and I mean, listen, when he was at Arizona State before he had the ankle injury, he was on his way to being elite. And then he got hurt and took away the run game, and he kind of leans a little bit too much on the run, in my opinion, in terms of leaving the pocket early. But it'll be fine. Carson Beck could be elite. I mean, the back of the baseball card going into college says, he should be elite. He certainly has talent around him at the wide receiver position, from McConkey to Lovett, obviously Brock Bowers. If they stay open throttle offensively, kind of throw first, run second, then yeah, he's going to put up some monster numbers in Athens. But we just haven't seen it yet, so you can't hand it to him until you see it. And by the way, to me, the wild card with Georgia is we're not going to know how good they are until late in the season, just based on it's perfectly fair to question their schedule. It is what it is. The biggest question is how good can they be in big games, because we won't see many. And the sample size will be so small for them.
Not often do I ask about Vandy, but I'm going to ask about Vandy. Vandy and Hawaii. I didn't see that game. I was busy doing something else. But from what I read, kind of a sloppy performance from Vandy.
Well, it was a lot of things. It was, the weather and the stadium being under construction and the scoreboard being held up by cranes in the end zone. It just aesthetically, it was not very pleasing. And I think what Clark Lee's most concerned about is, listen, the old theory is no team improves as much over the course of the season than between game 1 and game 2. So that's good for them. They have a lot of room to improve. Their special teams was good, but defensively against just a bad Hawaii team, they gave up a lot of points and a lot of yards late in that game. Now it was late in the night after like an hour and a half weather delay. It was game 1 of the season. It was hot. It was humid. You could make up a lot of excuses, but I haven't been one of those to jump on the Vandy bandwagon that they're going to make this giant leap this year. I mean, they lost their running back within the league. Like there's a lot of talent that they don't have anymore. The line play will always be a question at Vanderbilt in terms of depth, but they've got a lot of improvement to do based on how they looked at the end of that game. Now, check mark, just like last year, it's a win, and you can take positives out of that. And if you're Vanderbilt, you got to count as many wins as you can.
Tom, we appreciate it, man. Talk to you next week.
All right. Welcome to Game Week. Have fun.
Thanks, brother. Take care. Tom Hart there on the hotline. Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. When it's time to buy a vehicle. So we got 15-year-olds at the house. We're not buying a vehicle anytime soon. we got to figure out insurance first. But that being said, that day is coming, right? They're practicing driving. I know I'm going to have to get them a vehicle. I'm going to start my search there at CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com because they've got a great selection of pre-owned vehicles. And I'm telling you, the customer service, second to none. The experience is great. You're going to get a great trade-in value if that's the route you decide to go. You're going to really be happy with what they quote you there. And then you're going to be very happy with the pricing that you get for your new vehicle, for you, your loved ones, whoever it may be. It is Caldwell Country Chevrolet, known for their service, known for their great selection of vehicles, and really the complimentary pickup for all their service customers. I mean, you can't beat that. Valet service, it is the way to go, especially when you're busy and got stuff to do at work. They can take care of you. It is about a 15-minute drive, not far, Brian of Caldwell, short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with our good friends there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They're on Highway 21 in Caldwell and online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. All right, we are back. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We should get Billy in studio here in the next few. Looking forward to getting our football week started. I know there's a bunch of you watching on YouTube. Hello, YouTube friends. If you're watching and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We're trying to get those numbers up. We'd like to double our numbers. All right? I know it took us a while to get to 10,000. We'd like to double those because we know that you're watching. We see it. Many of you are watching and not subscribing, so we could appreciate if you could subscribe and even like it. And if you're watching us on the CW, just keep watching us on the CW. If you're listening to us on the Zone, keep listening to us on the Zone. But we have multiple options to take in the show, and we appreciate the way you all do it. Thank you very much. If you want to be a part of the conversation, we do have an open segment. You can call us up and give us your thoughts, like game week, like, is it different for you at work? Like, before I was at TexAgs, like, this first game, like, I went to work with a different attitude. I was working in sports, but it changes. Like, the whole, like, the mindset going to work and, like that first hour with OB was, like, it flew. Like, it's here. And, yeah, we have a lot of optimism, as we should. There should be a lot of optimism because we know the talent that is assembled here. We know the changes that this program has done to ensure a much better season. But there should be optimism because it's all right there, right? You've got the hardest part is the talent, right? Now it's just trying to figure out how to put it all together. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, tell us what you're thinking about the season. You can do that multiple ways on the text line or call us up. 979-693-1150. 979-693-1150 is the phone number to be a part of the conversation. We go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Jared Schultz there.
Yeah, I have some. So ESPN, they released their A&M preseason winning odds based on their Football Power Index. Some of them are surprising. Some of them are not. For example, in New Mexico, they have us at around a 97% chance to win. The one that caught my eye was against Miami. They have us at a 51% chance to win. In my mind, I thought that we had a higher percentage than that. But what do you think, David?
I mean, on the road, a team that's got a lot of talent. They're not a tough road environment. Like, I don't even know how the power index works. I read it once. I'm like, what is this? Like, everybody's got their own thing, right? To me, I would probably put it closer to 58, 60% chance, me personally. And I think we're going to win, by the way. But I can understand if you're putting up those numbers. But they both went 5-7 last year. Tyler Van Dyke was not good. They're expecting a better offense from them this year. I can understand them getting a little bit more of a bump being at home, even if it doesn't mean anything. I get all that. No doubt about it. And ladies and gentlemen, now on the show, it is Billy Liucci. Bill, I like that shirt. That's a new one for me.
Really? It's old.
I don't remember you wearing it often.
It's an oldie.
Oldie but a goodie. Why you got the smile? What?
Nothing. I like that one.
Okay,
What kind
thank
is
you.
it?
This one's just a polo that was in my closet. I like maroon. Big fan of the color.
I like that, like dull maroon like that.
Yeah. So Luchador was fun yesterday. We went through some of the positions, but
By the way, I didn't know I was coming in at 9 yet.
How did you not know?
Normally we come in Monday when the season gets going at 9, but we do it because there's a game to review, so we need like double time.
I thought we talked
Luckily,
about
I
it.
saw Twitter.
Pretty sure we talked about it.
We didn't talk about it, but I brought it up yesterday in the podcast, and I confused you.
Because I thought we talked about it
I
on
said
the
we
podcast.
start 2 hours this week.
Yeah. So you wanted to go 2 hours Friday, not necessarily.
I don't care.
Monday.
Hour and a half today is perfect.
Perfect.
We got a lot to discuss.
We do. So I was. Did you have a direction you wanted to start off with? Because I'm happy to go there.
No.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to ask you is, there's a bunch of transfer players. So last couple of years, Jimbo didn't bring in a bunch of transfers. This year, I'm looking through the list, and I'm like, there's several dudes here that could have a real impact. I don't know if there's a most impactful player out there, but I'll just read you some of the names. I'm forgetting somebody. Jordan Anthony, Ja'Day Walker, Tony Grimes, Sam McCall, Josh DeBerry, David Bailey, Jalen Henderson, Danny Lockhart, JD. There's a big group of
You
names.
just stopped. What was that last one? It was like a.
JD Davis?
Oh, I thought you said JD, and then you just stopped.
Got it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a lot. First of all, what that is, David, is a lot of depth. We've talked about this pretty extensively. There are very few guys that left that you would sit here and go, man, I wish we could have hung on to him, knowing what you know. Now, there are probably plenty of them that you go, I wish we wouldn't have recruited him despite the red flags. And I think if you look at how they recruit since, they've certainly learned a lesson in that. And the good news is, if both these classes were ranked like 15th, like last year's was, which, by the way, they're loving this group right now, and you'd go, well, yeah, but you haven't figured out how to recruit, non-red flags and still be elite. This class they're putting together right now is elite sans the red flags. They've definitely altered course since, some of the issues they had with that, with a small part of that 22 class, mind you. Most of these transfers were older guys. What these guys provide, though, is I think you've improved depth-wise. Would you love to get an Anthony Lucas back? Of course. Would you love that if P.J. Williams had not run into trouble, he was a promising young lineman? Of course. As far as this year's impact goes, what you really might have lost, you got to understand about Denver Harris. He's almost off the LSU football team. Smoke Bowie is off the Georgia football team. Chris Marshall is off the Ole Miss football team. 3 schools in your own conference, 2 in your own division. So that was what it was. They were very unlikely, if not, and their impact on this year's A&M team would have probably actually been the opposite of positive.
And then you wouldn't have these transfers.
So as far as impacting this year's team, Anthony Lucas, he might have been starting at DN. But that's a loaded position for A&M. Some of the guys that left that Chase Lane has proven he can make plays at A&M, and he's a contributor, but they're deep at wide receiver. They added Jordan Anthony and Ja'Day Walker from the transfer portal. I think the one spot would be and this is going to sound weird because he wasn't playing much last year anyway. It was like an Andre White. As a senior, could have been nice depth at linebacker, but there's just not a lot that left that hurt you. Matthew Wyckoff. I don't know what Keith Ford's going to become. That's a guy we don't talk about. Not Keith Ford. I'm sorry, L.J. Johnson. I don't know. He reminds me of Keith Ford a little bit, or did. What L.J. Johnson's going to become, but maybe him at backfield depth. I don't know. Nothing they really lost. And what they're adding, Nuño, is the first thing I think of when you say all those names is depth. Now, who will have the biggest early impact this season? And I think you forgot a couple of those linemen, Boston College, Rice, offensive linemen. And look, those guys, some people don't want to hear this, but those guys you got to practice. You got to have a scout team that the better your scout team can be, the better practices are. And you got to populate 15 offensive linemen really to have a good scout. So some of those guys are scout team, they're second team guys. Maybe they work their way, into second team. But depth is important. I like what they add in the backfield with Johnson as a true fullback. So now you've got him and Crown over there. I like, in the backfield, we talk about David Bailey and what he means in terms of having a big back that they don't have. And he has had some nice practices, Nuño, and had a couple of quality runs in a scrimmage, the second scrimmage. So, and by the way, that's a guy that Adazio knows very, very, very well. Josh DeBerry and Tony Grimes have started a lot of football in the ACC. One of them was a second-team All-ACC player. The other one was a 5-star recruit that everyone in the country wanted, and he's played a ton of college football against quality opposition. Sam McCall was a national top 100 guy that he's more of a after this season.
Right.
Like, let's develop him. He was a true freshman last year that got his feet wet at Florida State. Now he acclimates to this system. He's a guy I would expect you see like, okay, what's he going to do next year? And then I've talked extensively about Ja'Day Walker. We talked a little bit about Jordan Anthony yesterday, who adds this speed element that you didn't have. And I think Bobby Petrino was very familiar with Anthony prior to him coming here. So I think they've added a lot that's going to help. J.D. Davis, they need depth at linebacker. If you're asking me quickest impact, I think
DeBerry?
That's probably, based on what I've been saying, that's probably the guy. And
David
Grimes.
Bailey,
Look,
maybe?
And listen, and Grimes.
Yeah.
Like, here's what there are a couple things I want to talk about from yesterday, from our thing that sent people into just a death spiral. And one of them was, what about Tony Grimes? We were told he was starting the minute we got. I don't know that we said that.
I don't think we said that.
Maybe we did when they took him. I don't think we did, but he is, just because I'm talking up the camp DeBerry has had. And I said when they took DeBerry, people are sleeping. The guy's a second team All ACC pick 1 year. Last year was honorable mention. And that means that the league thought he was a top 4 corner in the league as a sophomore, a Power 5 conference, with Clemson, with Florida State. Notre Dame plays in it. I don't think they get on the conference team. But this is a guy that was a second team all conference pick as a sophomore. And Grimes is a guy that started a bunch of football games in Chapel Hill. Grimes will play. He will play a lot. He might be out there for the first snap. I think DeBerry is a guy who's I've heard a lot of buzz about during fall camp, and a lot of positive buzz. And I think you'll see both of them against New Mexico, and you'll see both of them play until you realize who's playing the best. And I think, there might be some snaps where you see DeBerry, Grimes, and Chappelle kind of in this dime spot, or nickel even.
Isn't it like the quarterback situation? Just because Max is having a great camp doesn't necessarily mean that Connor wasn't, and vice versa. You both things can be true.
There are days when we're going to say that Max Johnson had a really good day because he did.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that Connor is struggling or that Max has passed him. I wanted to hear that Max Johnson had good days in camp. I expected to. But if I didn't hear that, I would have been concerned.
Right.
Same with, Josh DeBerry making waves out there. And again, I don't think – I'm still very concerned about the corner position because I think the most talented guy might be the true freshman, Javon Thomas. Right. I don't love the idea that maybe at some point this year you have a true freshman corner and a true freshman linebacker starting. But if they're that good, then it is what it is. I'd love it to be at a point where they wouldn't have to be. But in the same thing, do you want to go to a break? Because I want to talk about the O-line, because that sent everyone into just
let's do that
mass panic for the streets. And apparently now we've got 4 guys hurt up front, according to the interpretation. So let's do that.
Let's hit a break. Right now we're talking about the Association of Former Students, the Constituent Network Tailgate. The Association of Former Students is excited to host a joint constituent network tailgate. That word is hard for me. First Saturday of the football season. Former students who are involved and or associated with one or more of the association's 13 networks are invited to join. The tailgate will take place September 2nd from 3 to 5:30 at the association's tailgate tent, which will be located on the front lawn of the Clayton W. Williams Jr. Alumni Center. Tickets are available for purchase and include food, drinks, as well as 12-man towel for the first 150 guests to arrive. When you purchase your tailgate ticket, you will also receive access to purchase football tickets at a discounted rate. If you're involved with any constituent network, make sure that you watch the Aggies beat the hell out of New Mexico with the Constituent Network tailgating this fall. To purchase more and get your tailgate ticket, please visit tx.ag/CN Joint Tailgate. It is the Association of Former Students. You say this, they say that. It is TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. So FBI forensic scientists on the message boards, Billy on the premium board. Hear you say one thing, and are you saying they're overreacting for it to mean something else sometimes? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, listen, I get everybody's worried about the O-line, and everybody's up in arms, and everybody wants consistency up front, and as do I, and I agree, consistency up front is very significant. I love the idea that they could return 5 starters this year. I think there's a very high likelihood that you'll look up and they will return 5 starters this year on that offensive line. We were talking yesterday about what could happen for New Mexico, and I mentioned that it's one thing that no one knew that I've talked about the entire offseason, and anyone that covers this program never mentioned it, is that Deuce Fatheree had end of spring knee surgery.
You said that way back
and
when.
He was on schedule to be ready for the season, and that has never changed. I think I specifically said, if not New Mexico, then Miami, long ago, long before the season came upon us. Then he gets here, and Deuce has been practicing for the last couple of weeks as a full go. But you've got guys like Zune, Basantis, and Crownover, who I've stated many times might be the most improved player on offense over last season. And if they need to play one of them instead of Fatheree this week, they can. And they would not feel bad about it, I don't think, at all. I mean, and those guys, and look, we mentioned, and Deuce and Layden weren't dominant last season. That wasn't a great, and really no one was. Dewberry looked really good when he came in, but then you have people that are O-line experts that are just, when I say that Naboo is pushing Dewberry, they'll tell you that Dewberry was by far A&M's best O-lineman last year. I don't know that. I don't know, nor do I really believe that was the case for him as a true freshman. But that's what they'll tell you. Do I think Cam could leave out of here as a 4-year starter? Yeah. Do I think he's got to hold off Mark Naboo because that guy is another one that is just doing this right now? Absolutely. I think the thing that helps with Naboo is he can be your backup center and your backup guard at both spots. It makes him very, very valuable.
Kenyon Green-esque.
But then at center, I said, look, Bryce has missed a lot of practice. And I know like his brother's on the board but it's just factual. He missed spring for track, which is he had the knee. He couldn't have practiced football anyway. People are focusing a little too much on that. It doesn't matter. But he came back for camp and he missed more practice. And it wasn't just like 1 or 2 practices. So do I think he'll start Saturday? Yeah, I do think. And I think we've said that. Is there a chance that he doesn't and you go with one of the guys that's been out there every day just for continuity's sake in game 1? Possibly. Do I think Bryce is your starting center in 2023? Yes. Like, calm the F down. Seriously. Like, you want information. I give you information based on what's kind of happening out there. And then if it doesn't fit exactly how you like it, people, and it's a small group, unfortunately, because 90% of the people don't say anything. And then of the 10 that do, 8% of those people are like, oh, and they can digest it and figure it out and either be concerned or be like, I don't really care about that. That's fine. The O-line situation right now today, and I'm not going to judge the group and start grading the group until I see how they perform in September against Miami, Auburn, and Arkansas. And I don't think in year 2, with this many guys coming back and this much experience, I don't think there is an excuse at all for them not being a really good offensive line and being, well, at the very least, significantly improved over last year, top half in the SEC, but I think they should be better than that. I think they should be a top, 4 unit in this conference with what they return. Bryce is going to play in the NFL. Layden's going to play in the NFL. Deuce will have a real shot. And that doesn't even count the young guys who, really promising. There's a lot of NFL talent there. There's a lot of experience. There's a potential very high rounder in Bryce. They should be really good. and they should be good on Saturday against New Mexico. It'll be that one is funny to me because New Mexico is one of these junk teams, slant, stunt, we're going to risk it all. I want to see them figure that out and pick that up, and I want to see the offense capitalize in the form of big plays through the air. I think that's where you'll see A&M try to really capitalize on that. But, dude, the offensive line conversation that we're having today, it is everything that's been said is extremely positive. And I'm here to tell you, if Bryce had practiced every day, and if if Deuce had practiced every day and not gotten hurt, there's your top 5, your starting offensive line. But I'll also say this: Deuce Fothery, Cam Dewberry, Trey Zune would all be being pushed. Deuce, healthy, would be being pushed just like a healthy Zune is right now by Basantis and Crownover. They would be being pushed. They are, I think they're insane talents. Those other 2 dudes, if Deuce had practiced all camp, would be pushing him right now. Wow. He would have to elevate his level of his performance over last season, and so would Trey Zune. And Zune's been doing that because he's being pushed. Dewberry, while I disagree with people that say he was the best offensive lineman last year, and I don't know where that I want to talk to the offensive line coach or player or expert analyst that watches that and says that as a guard. But I want to see, I do think Cam made the O-line better last year when he came in, and I thought he played exceptionally well for a true freshman. And guess what? He's getting pushed by Mark Naboo and even Basantis, who can play guard. Those guys are getting pushed. And Cam, if he's starting Saturday, which, again, I think you stick with those guys, then he had to earn it because he got really pushed. It wouldn't surprise me at all, though, to see out of those 3, one of them coming in with the second unit on Saturday. There are 3 different scenarios there, and I bet one of them at least we see play out. It's not the end of it's actually a good thing that they have that much depth, and they're trying to put the best O-line they can on the field.
All right, let's hit a break. We'll come back with Around Aggie Land, but right now it's Heritage Films. That's Chance McClain's company. They make documentary films about families. They make documentary films about family businesses, family ranches, and just the good old dad, right? You can do it all, and Chance does these 2-hour documentaries that are just so impactful and such a cool thing to share with other members of your family. Don't let time go by, right? Like, the cool thing is my dad's up there in age. He's 93. We did that interview with Chance back in November, right? And we got the documentary a couple months later, and it was awesome, 8 to 10 weeks afterwards. And we're talking about a 2-hour documentary that went through his whole life, his childhood in Cuba to his escape to the United States and beyond. Just awesome, awesome thing. He also has this awesome thing called the Year Flicks, where you do a 20-minute video with your kids, right? 12, 13, 14-year-olds, whatever it may be, where you get to find out like their likes, their needs, what they're into. And then a couple years later, these benchmark videos, you can do another one and see how much they've grown. That's the creativity and the greatness that is Chance and the company Heritage Films. The website, yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. All right, time for a little Around Aggie Land. Welcome into TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. As I mentioned, Around Aggie Land, presented by Normandy State Bank. Normandy State Bank, rock solid banking. You didn't hear the tease? You always walk away when we do this. You can join us. We can move, Kay.
I was going to say, this chair.
Website is normandystatebank.com. What do we have going on around Aggie Land?
Yeah, so obviously football this week. It is officially game week. I am sitting in Liucci's seat, and now he's blame Nick Savage. This is Nick Savage's fault. Anyways, Fighting Texas Aggie football is back. They will kick off against New Mexico at 6 p.m. You can watch that game on ESPN on Saturday. A&M Athletics also announced an exclusive partnership with Molson Coors and Boston Beer Company on Friday.
All right.
So Coors Light will be the domestic beer for the Aggies, and also Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea will be the malt beverage for the Aggies. So some I know there's a lot of Aggie fans excited about that.
I won't partake in that, but
You
it's all right.
won't. It's
No,
okay. It's
not my thing.
okay.
It's all right.
Over the weekend, the Jamie Morrison area got off to a great start. They went 2-0 after picking up a win against Omaha in the regular season opener on Friday night. They made it 2-0 with a sweep of Pepperdine on Saturday at the Omaha Invite. They are now off until Thursday, but they will be back to playing at the Hampton Inn Invitational with Wright State to kick that off. Soccer, unfortunately, could not pick up a win this weekend. They outshot the Baylor Bears 22-5, but they played to a 1-1 draw on Saturday night. But that was in front of the second largest crowd in Ellis Field history. It was 6,743 people there. So that for the Fish Camp game, that was awesome to see. Also over the weekend, former track and field standout Cherokee Young claimed silver at the 4x4 relay, while Athing Mew secured bronze in the 800 meter on the final day of the World Athletics Championships. So some good stuff going on. I know we're super excited about football here in this office, and things are about to get busy.
There's a lot more on around Aggieland now.
I
Remember
know.
when we didn't have that much?
Remember the summer months, and then it's gonna start getting stacked now. So
Thank you, Kay. Appreciate you.
of course.
When we come back on TexAgs Radio, I'm going to talk a little Notre Dame with Billy, but from an A&M perspective. They got their quarterback situation settled. What could that mean about the A&M whole season, right? Can we use them as an example? It's just one game against Navy. Doesn't mean that much. But if that spot is taken care of, what can it mean? We'll get into that and more. It's TexAgs Radio. Nate in Fort Worth, excuse me. I like your text. They're on the text line. That was kind of funny. It is TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy is with us. He's, doing one of the Billy things during the break. He'll be joining us here momentarily. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know that Jared's got a couple things to kick off.
Yeah, Matt in San Antonio had a question that I think is interesting. He says, before the football season starts, I wanted to ask your prediction on which of the Aggie sports, football, baseball, or basketball, will finish the highest ranked in the polls at the end of the school year. I think, this might be a hot take, I think all three could easily be top 15. Just the way that we're trending, I would be surprised if any of them weren't ranked in the top 25 after the season ends.
Yeah, well, baseball I think is going to have a great year, and as long as pitching gets figured out, and I know they've done some things to fix that, I think they're going to be really, really good again. Basketball, I need them to win a game in March. That's really where it starts for me. Like, not just in March, but in March Madness, I should say. I think they're going to be highly ranked when it starts. I think they'll have some pitfalls and some really, like, you can have a better season. You could be a better team, let me phrase it, and not do as well as they did in SEC play. They were so good in SEC play. But let's be honest. We got to hope that A&M football is a top 15 team. We need to see that. So I think all three are trending in that direction. I think that's a good one to ask Billy, too. If I had to pick one, baseball. I think I'd pick baseball if I had to pick one. But again, I feel really good about basketball.
Yeah, I feel really good about basketball.
That's
too.
hard.
Because baseball, we did lose some pieces, but we also picked up a lot.
But why do I have to pick one? I'm not gonna save one child in a burning house. I'm gonna save them all. We've had enough heartache.
But if you had to choose one, David,
if I had to choose one kid,
I'm kidding.
No way. I'm taking them all with me. If I can't carry them, too bad. We all go down together. I think we're gonna ask Billy that question because I can't just pick one. I think you can make a legit argument for all three.
See what happened?
What?
Kay raised the chair, and now I'm back.
You look good.
And it's not been lowered.
Your posture looks great. Yeah. There you go.
Kay's laughing back there. Okay, come on.
So he had a question that came on the text line that I don't want to answer because I want it to be all three, but I'll let him ask.
Oh.
So on your prediction, which A&M sport, football, basketball, or baseball, do you think will finish the highest ranked in the polls at the end of the school year? Or the season?
Can't they all?
That's a really good question. You know which team might start the highest ranked?
Basketball.
Yeah. I think Buzz and those guys, what they have coming back, how they finished the year, Penn State notwithstanding, just how they finished down the stretch of last season. Clearly, the second best team in the SEC beat the best team in the SEC that was a 1 seed. End of year.
Can they all finish in the top 15?
Oh yeah,
I
they
think
can absolutely.
Yep.
If you had to make me pick, I might go baseball.
That's what I picked.
Because but it's not a sure thing. Because if they find the right pitching, and Bronny's back there trying to be an expert on football, and he's failing spectacularly, but he is one on baseball. I think he would come in here and say, if they can find quality pitching, and I don't mean the best pitching staff in the country. I don't mean go magically have someone look like Paul Skeens this year.
Pretty darn good.
If they can find quality pitching, I think they could certainly be a team that finds their way to Omaha, I would pick, if I had to pick one, I would pick baseball.
I'd pick baseball too.
Basketball has me, thinking, but I mean, you could finish top 10 and go to the Sweet 16. You could finish Sweet 16, not advance past that, and still be an end of season top 10 team. Yeah. Because in theory there's 8 and 2 extra spots, and really not even all the Elite 8 will finish top 15 or top 10. So
if A&M football is 9-3, if they're 9-3, is that top
15?
Top 15, yeah.
Probably. Win a bowl. Win a bowl.
Win a bowl. You're top 10.
Win a bowl, and you're in contention for a top 10 at 10-3.
Yeah.
Especially on that schedule, because there will be wins that knock you. You jump pretty high up in the rankings along the way. So,
I wanted to bring up Notre Dame's offense with Sam Hartman with an A&M perspective.
Okay.
Because they were a team that suffered an embarrassing loss as well, just like their
Marshall,
offense had issues, right? Their quarterback spot had issues. That was an
Notre
offense.
Dame played Navy.
Yes.
Okay. Sure.
Their line.
They scored 42.
Yep.
You guys this morning said if A&M scored 38, you'd be very unhappy.
Did I say that this morning?
Yeah, both of y'all did.
I didn't think I said it. I want Nick to get the tape. I think I've said it in the past. I don't think I said it today.
I agree. I want to see A&M get over 40 against New Mexico Saturday.
Yeah.
I do. I want them to roll. I'm joking because Notre Dame raced out, but yeah, their offense looked really good.
He's
against
great.
Navy. Sam Hartman's. When's the last time we can get Olin in here to ask him the last time a guy with a beard won a Heisman? He could do it because they don't play anyone really. I mean, who do they play? USC.
Play USC. I think they play Clemson. Is that right?
Do they get them back this year? If they play Clemson and they go 1-1 in those two games, I could see Sam Hartman. Problem is USC and Caleb Williams.
They get Ohio State.
Notre Dame does.
Notre Dame.
Week?
They get them week. Let's see where to go.
I love that. Don't play Michigan, but play Ohio State.
September 23rd.
Oh, yeah. That's like the number 2 game.
And they do get Clemson as well.
They do play people for once.
Yeah.
He'd have to go 2-1 in those 3 games, in my opinion, to win a Heisman. I haven't seen enough of them to say that. I've seen enough of Sam Hartman. He's a stud at Wake Forest.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, put that team on his back, and he's well coached with Clawson. He goes over there. He looked outstanding. Notre Dame's still going to run the football, so that's going to help him out. They've got their O-line's come on. But they played Navy. Okay? So I will say, let's see how he does in those 3 games you mentioned and a couple others along the way. But they got a shot. If they can be versatile and two-dimensional on offense, they got a shot against those teams. You know why? Because I think against 2 of those 3 teams, they're going to have a big advantage at QB. Now, Cade Klubnik could end up having this breakout year. But, I mean, as of we sit here today, they got a big advantage at quarterback against both Ohio State and Clemson.
As of today, absolutely.
Definitely in experience, but also in terms of just NFL talent with what they're saying about Hartman. Now, USC, not so much. But it does give them, against that USC defense, I can tell you this, Caleb Williams will be playing against a better defense than Sam Hartman will.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's really interesting, with him there. They really are. How that ties into A&M, I guess you're saying, can the Aggies make a similar jump offensively?
Not necessarily that, because I'm not expecting to score 45 points a game.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, with the right guy at quarterback, it changes, and this is not groundbreaking journalism, it changes the entire the way we look at this team. If Connor ends up being the guy that we think Connor's going to be, the whole thing's a different conversation this year.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like if Connor Wigman is a top 5 quarterback in the SEC as a sophomore, I think his ceiling's higher. I don't think, I think there's a world, and I don't know that he'll get there this year, but I think there's a world when you look around the SEC and you go, who are we just raving about right now?
It's not
Will
an elite
Rogers, KJ Jefferson, Jaden Daniels. Like, I know Jaden was banged up against LSU, against A&M in that LSU game, and I know A-Chain ran all over the field, but Connor Wigman had a better game.
Right.
Connor Wigman had a better game. He made more plays throwing the football. He scrambled for more yards. He led his team. I don't think that's crazy at all. Everybody talks about, and not everybody talks, no one's saying that Jackson Dart's great, but I thought he came to Kyle Field and played a really good game running around. But look at what Connor Wigman did in that game with a team that was really struggling, that had just come off, I believe, a loss to South Carolina, and to come in and so, yeah, we've seen not just glimpses, but a couple full games there. And Auburn, and Evan Stewart said it yesterday. He said that's the game he has circled. He wants that game. And I think that left a bad taste in everyone's mouth that they went and lost that game last year, and Auburn, stormed the field, or the whole thing, and celebration at A&M's expense. I think that might have been like for them,
The low point.
outside of App State, that might have been a low point for them, and I think that was not just Connor; it was the whole team. Moose didn't play, and I'm sure he wants that one back, and A-Chain was hurt. There was a lot going on, and they want that one back. But, if Connor plays the way he flashed, and by flash I mean from, full games against solid SEC teams and the SEC West champ in Ole Miss and LSU. Yeah, in college football, more so than the NFL even, the quarterback, if you get elite quarterback play, it means everything. And if you get bad quarterback play, it ruins everything.
If you get competent quarterback play with the playmakers that they have at their disposal,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying competent, game changer.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, but I think Connor, I think he has the potential to be way more than competent.
Yeah.
And I know you do too, but I think I just think if he can limit turnovers, I think his bad games will be, solid, if unspectacular. I think those will be the bad ones. You just got to limit the turnovers. But I think the good games are the ones that they're talking about at 11 o'clock at night on the SEC network on repeat. And the highlight reel is a bunch of his throws, a bunch of his key scrambles, a bunch of stuff like that. I think that's what he'll do when he's on. And in this Bobby Petrino offense, I think the sky's the limit. Sam Hartman, no, not yet. What are we talking about, right? Like
Fifth-year quarterback.
Yeah, but young breakout player in the SEC, I think that's absolutely on the table.
Did you see our friend Desmond Howard picking A&M as a dark horse?
I like Desmond. I like Desmond. He and I have been in communication since A&M attempted to join the SEC in like the summer of 2010.
Yeah.
Desmond he's good people, and he also doesn't favor A&M. He has no agenda against A&M, but he's not like some A&M guy. He's just honestly saying that. I guess he's the new Herb Street. Remember there was a few years there where Kirk was always really high on A&M, and the Aggies kept letting him down. I think that might be where Desmond's at now, but hopefully he hits it right this year, because that damn playoff prediction last year was one of the worst. Turned out to be one of the worst ever freezing cold takes.
But
who was it? It was Baylor, A&M. I think it was somebody else in the SEC, and Michigan. He hit on Michigan. It was Was it Notre Dame? It was Baylor, A&M, Michigan, and someone else. But anywho, this year he picked A&M.
I got it right here.
It was Pittsburgh, I think.
Pitt. You're right.
Michigan, Texas A&M, Baylor, Pitt.
Yeah. Now this year he says A&M is what? The sleeper.
The dark
pick?
horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with him. And I said last year when they were preseason number 6, I thought they were a little too high.
You did?
I said I think it should be in the 10 to 12 range. I'd be okay with them on the back end of the top 10, and that would have been way off too. But I thought they were too high at 6. There were concerns with so much inexperience at quarterback and so much inexperience on the O-line. That was the fear. Not to mention losing Elko. That was a lot to be sitting there going, okay, top 6 this year. This season, knowing what we know about this team, to call them a dark horse contender in the SEC, I don't think that's a stretch at all. I think with all the experience they have coming back, with one definitely proven quarterback in the SEC and another guy who really flashed some high-end special talent down the stretch as the starter, I think with all that they have coming back, and I think with the addition of Bobby Petrino, I think it's perfectly reasonable to look at Georgia, Alabama, and LSU, and like you said this morning, see, I don't only criticize what y'all say anymore. Like you said this morning, if there's another team in that league of the 14 outside of those three who is more, I think Olin actually said this, who is more equipped to win this year with players with experience. You saw the stat where they returned the most starters in the SEC. We know all about the talent. We know all about the 22 talent that's now going into year 2, which they should make a huge jump. With all that said, they should absolutely be that pick. You can make me an argument for Tennessee, but I've got questions on Milton. I've got questions with what they lost on their O-line, and their defense wasn't that good last year anyway. So
those are fair questions.
I think I'm going, and A&M's got fair questions, and that's why they're not in the top 3 right now, nor do I think they should be. I think, but if you're listing the crowded, very crowded middle, which might be 4 to 11 this year, to at least 4 to 10, I think I'm putting A&M, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and then probably Arkansas in that 4, 5, 6, 7. If I'm ranking them in order, I'm putting A&M 4, and I'm taking my chances with the experience and with the talent and with the new coordinator. Why can Arkansas – now, I do think A&M fans are really excited about Bobby Petrino now. I really think they are. I think they've heard enough. They've seen enough. I think they've come around and really get it. Other than Brawny, I'm just kidding. He likes him too. We got our group chat with Petrino on. He's the emoji there.
Picture.
But I think they've come around to realize that was a really strong hire. And you listen around the SEC, and people around this conference that know football believe so as well. And there are people that aren't always complimentary about A&M by a long shot. But I don't know if Alabama fans are necessarily excited about Tommy Rees. But if folks in South
They're probably excited not to have Bill O'Brien.
They should be. If folks can be as excited in South Carolina about their new hire and they go and get a guy that was a position coach at Arkansas, and if Arkansas can be excited about going and bringing back a guy that was already there, he was good, he wasn't great, and those two fan bases can be really fired up, and Kentucky can be fired up about a guy coming back from the NFL that had a good offense at Kentucky, but it was nothing special. Kentucky under Mark Stoops has never lit the SEC on fire. And if those fan bases can all be excited about their new OCs, and I know Hugh Freeze is the OC, but he goes and gets, is it Montgomery?
Yeah, he did get Montgomery.
Out at Tulsa. Every single one of those coaches, and I don't know about Reese, I just don't think that, but every single one of those coaches would have loved to come coach this talent at A&M, and they would have picked A&M in a heads-up thing. I know for a fact the guy at South Carolina and the guy at Auburn would have.
Dowell Loggins.
Dowell Loggins. And those guys, those fan bases are all very excited about the opportunity of what their offense can do this year. And if that's the case, imagine if they had Bobby Petrino, and ask any Arkansas fan who they'd rather have as their OC this year.
Mm-hmm.
Ask any of them, no matter how excited they are about their current situation. Say, okay, would you rather have Bobby Petrino?
Ask
away
any
the Alabama fan, would you rather have Reese or Bobby Petrino? See, the negative about Petrino that people have put out is that, him and Jimbo, it's going to be like fire and ice. It's going to be oil and vinegar. There's just going to be a constant battle out there on the field. It's going to be like, just a feud every week for all the world to see and total meltdowns. That's just a made-up, it's just a wild-ass assumption, and that's all that is. It's just people in the media assuming. It's people like Barrett Sallee assuming, because, let's be honest, there are people like him that aren't fans of Jimbo. They just straight up
and
aren't.
You can hear it.
Yeah, you can hear the personal venom there. I forget who's the other guy in the national media where I'm always like, you just don't like him. And that's fine, and maybe it's justified. I don't know that it is or isn't, but you're letting it affect your job in a way that people accuse us or any other quote unquote fan side of doing. It's the same thing, whether you're favoring something or working against it because of personal feelings or what you want to see happen. There are people that want to see A&M and Jimbo fail. They want to see the Petrino Jimbo thing fail for no other reason than they want to. But again, you ask any of those fan bases, including Alabama, and who knows, Tommy Rees might end up being the next Lincoln Riley. And I don't love Lincoln's all, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
He might be this rocket
star.
Yeah. But as of today, if you're in Tuscaloosa and you said, hey, who you want coordinating the offense? Forget about the narrative. And would the narrative be that Nick Saban and Bobby Petrino are going to fight and go crazy? No. In fairness, that's earned because Nick Saban took everybody talks about Sark, the Longhorn fans. Oh, Sark, he saved Alabama. No, Lane Kiffin did. And he had Lane. He had Loxley first, who kind of opened it up. Then he had Lane. Then he had Sark. So if he took a Petrino, I understand why it wouldn't be, they're going to fight. But with Jimbo, why can't it be that way too? Because we've never seen him do this. We've never seen him take his offense and say, hey, I want the help. I want to be freed up. Here you are. Call plays. We've never seen him do this. And I think, contrary to what people thought for a while, now they've come around. I do wish earlier on Jimbo would have just said it.
Yeah.
It would have saved us a lot of, every conversation I had at SEC Media Days, from dinner to pressers. But I think people have even come around now to go, oh, he really is turning it over, and it's what he wants to do.
Right. All right, let's hit a break. Let's talk a little Costa Vida. So this morning, Holly at around 3:50 in the morning was out there for student ticket pool there at 3:50. She was joined by Ross Bjork and a bunch of his athletic department staffers were out there passing out pictures, passing it out. There she is right there in the pic with Ross to her right there if you're watching on television or on YouTube out there. But Costa Vida is the place to go to get your Fresh Mex on. They have such great food, and they're going to be available in multiple places this Saturday. Sweet pork and chili lime chicken burritos will be available at the TexAgs tailgate, so come by and have some fun with that. Sweet pork and chili lime chicken tacos, quesadillas will be available from their food trailer in the fan zone of the corner of Joe Route Boulevard and Houston Street, and sweet pork and chili lime chicken nachos available in the All-American Club and at the Yard at Kyle Field. And, of course, it's an open invite to every one of those to stop by the store in South College Station. Start your game day off right with breakfast tacos and coffee by stopping by for lunch or dinner this upcoming weekend. And Holly wants to remind you guys that we got to beat the hell out of New Mexico. No doubt about that. They are in South College Station, but they can be available all around campus, as we just mentioned, and here at TexAgs as well. Our tailgate's open to you guys. Come by and visit and get some Costa Vida on. Fresh Mex done the right way. It is Costa Vida all over campus, but 4501 Mills Park Circle in College Station. Aggie owned and operated. It's the place to go. It's Costa Vida. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy's with us here to close out the hour. We'll get to some text messages on the hotline, 979-693-1150. But before we do that, let's go to the Social Center. They're presented by the Angry Elephant, and that's where we find Jared Schultz. Jared?
Yeah, so we got a text from 903. Casey Agg says, many successful programs in the past have used a mental/psychology coach. She asks, has Jimbo retained services of a mental coach, and if so, who?
Well, I know the university itself has Ryan, is it Pittsinger on staff. And in fact, the first time it was brought up on this show was with Garrett Chadwell, talking from the golf perspective, being such a mental sport. I see it and I hate to always use my kids as an example, but I see it like the mind is the most important thing out there. Obviously, you need to have the physical talent out there, but if your mind's not checked into it, the whole thing goes sideways. I saw it with my daughter a couple weeks ago. She had a bad game, and it kind of spiraled into a couple bad games. Luckily, she's gotten out of it, but it becomes such a mental thing. A&M's definitely got folks on staff.
You watch Billions?
I haven't yet, but I've been told I'd like it.
It's been going on right now, or Wendy, who is the performance coach, but more of the in-house, kind of like a sports, like athletic department or sports programs have, and she's the in-house psychiatrist. And, her job is to see to it that they perform and are happy and earning. Now it goes into a whole deeper place in this season with that. But, yeah, I mean, anything you do, you get off your game, it's easy to – the mind is more powerful than the body.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I mean, A&M does a great job in all sports of having the resources for these athletes. Now, just like anything, when you're your age, as you know, and you can be there and not be present and it not work because you don't want to be there or you're not listening or you don't take advantage of an asset and something that's there to help you and you don't fully want to or believe you need the help or whatever. I mean, you have to really want to utilize that resource. You can't just, you can't force it. I can't force this football into this cup. You have to have to want it. So you have to be willing to take the air out, which somebody messaged in on Twitter today and said their OCD is driving them crazy because this football is not aired up enough. Yeah. But it's still not aired. It's still aired up too much to fit in that cup unless you really wanted to make it happen. And I understand that ball can't go in that cup. It's a very terrible analogy, but you get it.
Billy, I'm not necessarily asking you the best game this weekend because, I mean, there's a couple of no-brainers. But is there a game on the schedule outside of A&M that you're like, yeah, you know what, I've got special attention. Like, I really want to see that, like the Monday night game, Clemson-Duke. I'm interested by that one. I don't know if it's one of the better games of the weekend, but I'm interested to see the K-Klubnik area. I'm interested to see Mike Elko year 2. Is there a game on the schedule, North Carolina, South Carolina? What? We had a minute before the break, so I felt like giving you something that didn't take too much time.
A game on the schedule this week that
other than A&M.
I'd probably North Carolina, South Carolina, just because the Gamecocks and, there's always a little interest in what Mac Brown's doing, and North Carolina has been a good, solid program. It's been an amazing job he's done there. They haven't, maybe they're a Devon A-Chain away from having taken that step. They haven't taken that step, but with Drake May versus South Carolina, Spencer Rattler, I actually really like that game. I think that football game should be very entertaining. And I want to learn a little bit about South Carolina.
Yeah.
Does it all go away that you beat Clemson and Tennessee to end last year if you open up the next year and lose to North Carolina? I think a lot of it does. It doesn't mean they're done, and it certainly doesn't mean that the Aggies should take them for granted, 8 games later. But I do think South Carolina has the potential to really excite that fan base as they move into SEC play and have them on tilt up there in Columbia, or to kind of go, hey, new season, you got a really tough early schedule, and you might be digging yourself a hole now all of a sudden because you needed to win that game. And all of a sudden you forget about Tennessee and Clemson because you were unable to beat North Carolina. So I think that's an important game for Beamer, Rattler, and the Gamecocks. That's the one that stands out. What was the other one you said?
Clemson, Duke. I'm interested in that. I got one for you that's an 11.
It would be awesome if could you imagine if Mike Elko pulled that off?
Yeah.
But it's Clemson. It's a big talent discrepancy there.
I got an 11 a.m. game that I'm interested in. I don't know how much of it I'll watch, but I'm very interested because we've talked so much about him, not just us, the national media. Colorado, TCU.
I hope TCU whips that ass.
Yes.
And look, I just don't. I do not like how much Deion Sanders has made it about him. And everyone in this sport that covers college football, their big thing is they hate these coaches because they make too much money, or it's not about the kids, and they're selfish, and how can they move programs like when Jimbo or Lane Kiffin even, or who was the other SEC coach that said it, when anybody talks about realignment and how it's hurting the game, the media, they just run with this just bleeding heart thing, and they race to their phones to tweet about what sorry SOBs these coaches are because they make money and they leave jobs, and how dare they say that this is not good for college football. And then like people like Jay Billis that they want, this is professional. They want to talk up the kids aren't getting what they deserve. With NIL now, the athlete has all the power. They can get as much money as they can go pursue. And I've always thought athletes should be paid. But when Jay Billis sits up there and does this whole routine, but he won't call out college coaches that he's in bed with for blatant cheating over the years, that everyone knows the names of the coaches that just deliver the bags of cash for years when you said players weren't getting paid. But players at your university at Duke and at Carolina and Kansas and Kentucky, the whole world knows what goes on there. Yep. But these guys at ESPN won't say jack about it. So this double standard thing, no, it does not fly with me at all. But anyway, that's my rant of the preseason here. There you go. I don't even know where I started with that. That was Deion Sanders. So they won't. It's all about the players. It's all about the players until it's not, and it's all about the coach. But yet Barstool, who did shows with Deion, and everyone else, you can find the criticism of Deion in like some little corner of Twitter, some little corner of the internet somewhere.
Right.
They won't say it. Like, this is exactly what you guys claim to be against, which is it being about the coach and not the athlete. The way he's cleaned house there, and I get, on one hand, I will say Deion's only doing to an extreme what college coaches across the country do. But he's doing it to such an extreme, and I think the criticism of it and the way it's being done is far, far, far too low. I'm rooting for, and I say that, I'm rooting for TCU in that one, big.
All right, let's hit a break. Right now we're talking Milliken Reserve that connects families to natures and to each other. They provide a natural setting for people to connect and come hike and be all together out there. That is right. That is Milliken Reserve, who is a farm-to-table community in College Station. You know about them. They got homes, they got trails, they got wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature. They're dedicated to the conservation of a healthy community, and they've got respect for that native landscape and wildlife. They've got 2,600 acres of open space farms, 30 miles of trails, and an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape that includes walking and equestrian paths, creeks, ponds, gathering areas. It is a place for families to cherish for generation after generation. They've got all the animals you can imagine. All the species find their homes in the preserved woods, the ponds, and the creeks. White-tailed deer, songbirds, rabbits, and turtles out there. And they share in a legacy of conservation, which means generation after generation, you're going to come back to that same pristine countryside place. An enduring resource and a place to come together to relax and reflect. Go out there, explore, and discover by hiking, biking, canoeing, kayaking. You've got equestrian trails there, evening yoga, the summer camps. You can learn more about all the greatness that is Milliken Reserve at one place, millikenreserve.com. Again, that website, millikenreserve.com. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the yodeling studio, the Rollo Insurance studio, because I was yodeling. Billy, I don't know if you know this, but I mentioned the weather earlier. 86 degrees in the CSTX. I'm fairly sure at this time yesterday we were about to get to 100, so I'll take the 86 degrees here on a beautiful Monday morning as you text away and I just talk and I ramble here. I guess we can check in there at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center.
I heard you about the weather.
I'm going to read this from Jeep, one of our loyal listeners on the YouTube page. I'll read this before we go to Jared. This says, I'll be traveling this weekend. I'll be at the TexAgs tailgate, then the game, next day going to the Astros game. Jeep, we hope to see you here at the TexAgs tailgate. We'll say hello. I know you've been mentioning it a couple different times about coming by, so it'll be fun to chit-chat a little bit. Jared?
Sounded kind of rude.
What?
Oh, like you were like, hey, it's not the first time you mentioned it. I got the message. You're coming.
No, that's not how I meant it at all. Jeep knows me, and he knows you. If he knows your jokes, he knows mine. Jared?
Yeah, we got a text from George north of the border. He says, looking forward to watch Coach Prime at TCU. I probably won't watch A&M, still hurt from last season.
Wow.
What? Get over it, bro.
Damn Canadians.
North of the border? Like, come on. Just,
North of the border, is he in Oklahoma or is
maybe
he
he's in Oklahoma.
in Canada?
I bet you it's Oklahoma. No, look, get over it. That season's done.
I mean, if you're not going to watch A&M football, like maybe,
I'm out.
Maybe you're the smart one. I don't know, but I'm watching. Like, I'm in. I would be in even without this job. Without this company, without like I would.
That's
be
what
in.
we do.
It's sports, man. How about being it? Cubs or how about the Boston Red Sox? For as long as they were, just heartbreak. And they've won 3 World Series or 4 since 03.
3, right?
I think at least 3. Yeah, definitely 3. So like 3 World Series in the last 20 years. And then think about like
The Cubs.
Clemson football.
Yeah.
Which was, that's always the model we kind of talk about. But, we'll see, man.
We got another text come in from Chad. He's saying, I wasn't able to listen until just now. You probably have addressed this, but I noticed Noah Thomas wearing a walking boot at the NIL video. Did y'all have any comments on that?
I don't care about that stuff. I saw everybody talking about the picture. Like, I report what we know, what we've heard. I haven't heard anything about Noah, his status. Certainly not anything significant. I also haven't heard anything about his status for Saturday being in doubt. That doesn't mean it can't be. Here's the deal, and this is not Noah related because, again, Evan Stewart missed a day or 2 of practice last week with something minor. Like, there will be as the week wears on, we'll start to learn who's not going to go. I mentioned yesterday Isaiah Rakes won't be out there probably. He had a hand injury, which he'll be able to play through, but had to get that, that has to heal up and get taken care of. But they'll as of today, I don't know for sure of anyone that's not playing Saturday besides Donovan Green and probably Rakes. Now, I can guarantee you there will be some guys when Saturday rolls around that will not be suited up or might not play. And I don't know if that's – we've mentioned some of them. And on the O-line, I think they'll all play. Maybe – I haven't heard that they'll give Deuce a rest in week 1. Maybe, but I haven't heard that that's something that's happening. Hell, like I said, he might be out there starting Saturday. But I don't know of anyone else that will miss Saturday, but I guarantee you there will be guys. Because it's New Mexico, because you can get them a whole extra week of rest and not aggravate an injury, that will not play against New Mexico, but will be back practicing on Monday, ready to go for Miami. That's the nature of this first game with a big second game. That's college football, not just in 2023, but in any year. But with Noah, no, I have not heard anything of that being anything of note. Guys, first of all, if it was a serious injury, they'd probably tell him not to go to that. Secondly, at some point, people in walking boot could mean anything from high ankle sprain out for weeks to quite often it's nothing. Like, wear this around when you walk to let that thing heal up so you're 100% instead of 80% on Saturday.
Yeah. Let's hit a break. We'll come back with one final segment here on a Monday's TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, 911 University Drive East in College Station. They got a wide selection of Rolex timepieces for both men and women. Stop by David Gardner's Jewelers and meet with one of their certified Rolex specialists. They're on University Drive in East College Station. You can shop online at davidgardnersjewelers.com. We are here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. He's Billy Liucci. I'm David Nuño. Billy, you alluded to it earlier, and I kind of want to bring it back.
It's an illusion.
No, you did.
It's an illusion.
Illusion. This stat is not unique. It's not the first time we've heard it, but you did talk about it. SEC returning starters, A&M 19, which is the most in the conference, but not far behind them is Missouri at 16. How much stock do you put into that, considering how young of a team they were last year?
Well, it's always about, and people have been quick to point this out, and they're like, oh, you're returning this many guys off a 5-7 team. a lot of times that stat can be misleading. So then you have to say, well, who are the guys and how did they perform? Well, I mean, you look at Wigman and the way he finished the season. You look at the talent on that O-line. You look at Evan Stewart, Anais Smith, and Moose Muhammad and how they performed last year, particularly down the stretch in the case of Moose. You look at the other guys coming in that we haven't talked about and how talented are they. Le'Veon Moss, Mari Daniels, Reuben Owens, a 5-star. Jake Johnson was essentially a 5-star. He'll be playing a lot more. You got, we know what we know about Noah. So all this, that's the offense. And then defensively is where you talk what you're talking about, which is I really look, when I'm looking at returning starters and the team didn't have a lot of success. So you could say, is that necessarily a good thing? And in some instances, that's true. The A&M defense didn't stop the run last year, but they weren't bad at all in terms of points allowed, in terms of pass defense. There were some areas where they did good, and there were some Saturdays where they played really well. So it wasn't like this. I know that Ole Miss game just like stands out for us. How about how they played defensively against LSU? How about how they played defensively against Bama? Well, it was Jalen Milroe. Well, guess what? That's probably who they're going to face this year at Kyle Field too. And they forced 4 turnovers that day. There were a couple other games. Look, how about Arkansas after the first quarter against KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders? They had moments where they were pretty good defensively. Even that Auburn game was bad, and Auburn missed a wide-open touchdown pass and yada, yada, but they scored 13 points in that one. App State was terrible the way App State ran on them, and they couldn't get off the field, but App State scored 17 points in that one. So, like, scoring D, this defense, there were areas where they played well. There were times where they played. It wasn't an awful defense. It has to be a lot better in year 2 under Durkin. My point is, when it's that 5-7, you can either say, yeah, that was just a crappy team. I don't care how many returning starters Vandy has. Or you can really look into it, and then you go, okay, let's talk about this. To me, the 2 things that jump out is 3 things. How did those guys perform individually? And there's a lot to be excited about at the skill spots with what they've done on the field, even during a 5-7 season and in their careers. But then the next thing you go is, how many of these guys, Nuño, were either in year 1 as a starter last year or true freshmen?
Right.
So there are a lot of guys on that team that were year 1 as a starter or true freshmen that are counting in that mix. A lot of them are going in their second year as a starter or their second year on campus. That should be a massive collective jump by a bunch of dudes. And that jump, as we know when talking to guys like Evan, like Connor, like Bryce Anderson, that jump started the day they walked off the field at LSU. It had to do with how they carried themselves in the offseason, how they prepared, how they integrated and meshed with their teammates. Some of them stepped up as leaders. Like a lot changes from year 1 to year 2, not just in college football, but, as freshmen, but also like a Trey Zune. He was in his second year. But, hey, I started last year. I started for an entire season. You should be a lot better football player this year. There's no question about it. And if you need any proof of that, look how so many of those guys I'm talking about, look how they played in their final game of last season against LSU. It's a shame they missed a bowl game. I would have loved to see what Connor and that team with that amount of confidence could have done in a bowl game. And especially in particular, I would love to have seen like Daniels and Le'Veon Moss running behind an improved O-line coming off the confidence, because I'm assuming A-Chain wouldn't have played in that bowl game.
Right.
Might be a big assumption because he did play against LSU, but I think you would have seen a lot more of the backs as well.
I'm going to read this because you're here. John, listening, says, Nuño, I want to let you know that this is John that Anna Rosa Peterson mentioned in Friday's text back from Budapest, still listening and thankful for what you all do.
What time is it in Hungary right now?
I don't know. Okay, can you Google, Jared?
I mean, you just look on your phone,
Yeah,
right?
but it's a couple steps.
Go ahead, keep talking. I'm looking up Hungary.
Right. It's 5:55 p.m.
Oh, so he's actually in better situation than us.
But I think he's here now. He's working with her there. So we miss Anna Rose. So, John, thanks so much for listening. Appreciate you. All right, that's going to do it for TexAgs. Billy, thank you for coming in, buddy.
Nuño, thank you.
Tomorrow on... Pretty good shirt. Pretty good shirt. Tomorrow on the program, Shireen, Jamie, two Jamies, McCoy and Morrison. The KBTX Roundtable, Jordan Pugh. How about that? What a busy show. And we're going to get a New Mexico insider to break down their game on our Get to Know series.
All right.
Thank you, buddy. That's going to do it. We will see you all mañana.